While not among the rarest sights for wandering adventurers, visible spirits of the departed in the realm of Mundus are not as common as one might expect. This is not due to lack of ghosts haunting the lands of Tamriel, but because becoming perceptible to the naked eye requires energy that most disembodied souls cannot conjure up. In order to appear in the transparent, ethereal forms we see them in, they need to have gotten in touch with necromantic magics or to have accumulated enough mana, and the latter happens over time. Regardless, the ghosts we come across during our stories as Dovahkiin in the Fourth Era are not at all few in number, and all of them, hostile and amicable alike, are as fascinating as they can often be enigmatic. And so we shall see what we may uncover on all that linger on Mundus today. Drem Yol Lok, Zuris Valbo, and welcome to my second study in my home Leaf Rest in Riverwood, Skyrim. For those of you who have been in my humble abode before, I decided for us to summarize our findings during today's investigation here, as opposed to our usual desk. We shall look at many books, and it is much neater to simply pluck them from the shelf when we have need of them, as opposed to clutter the literary works on the side of my smaller table. And to you who are new here, be welcome, braan bovitaan ag bahlan fadonne, fellow adventurers and worthy friends. Here today we shall dive deeply into the visible spirits that haunt the land of the Nords, into their stories, if such are available to us, their possible reasons for lingering on the realm of Mundus, and the mystery surrounding some among them. Firstly, we will briefly go over what is generally known of ghosts in Tamriel, and then we will turn our attention to the individual or grouped ones we may meet during our travels in Kaizal, Skyrim. I shall not cover any spirits in the Solcairn or Sovngarde, neither will I speak of Hircine's stack-shaped spectre or the Augur of the Lane. The former can be found in the realms of Oblivion and Aetherius respectively, and the Lord of the Hunt is a Daedric prince. As for the cryptic orb fused with the magical energies pulsing through the College of Winterhold, it is not entirely clear what he is exactly, and Works already has a long investigation dedicated to the Augur, which he has re-uploaded on his new channel. I will leave the link in the description below. Without further ado, let us focus on the inked pages of my journal where I have documented my research. What ghosts are in their essence was already explained through descriptions. Similarly to numerous other universes, including Earth and folklore, they are the disembodied souls of the deceased who have not passed to their respective afterlife for one reason or another. If they have been granted rite of passage to Aetherius or Oblivion, these spirits linger on Mundus because they have unfinished business in the world of the living, and or because they are torn by guilt over events that occurred during their lifetimes. In some cases, they may briefly return to Mundus to aid Finalas Gaine, the alive ones in some way, before going back to the beyond. Ghosts manifest with the clothing or armor and weapons, if they carried such, they wore at the time of their death. They are capable of attaching themselves to or even fully possessing inanimate or moving objects that were often of significance to them whilst they still drew breath, as well as living and dead bodies alike. In the former case, rituals are performed to banish the spirit from its normally oblivious and unwilling host, lest it has enough energy to replace its original soul entirely or rush the person to an early grave, deliberately or by error. They can also send dreams and visions. One of the ways for a spirit to forgive themselves for their mortal mistakes and eventually rest for good is to be summoned to aid the living in one affair or another, and or to vivify a body voluntarily. After what has been keeping them on Mundus is at last resolved, the ghosts will proceed to their afterlife, which is determined by whom and or what they worshipped while alive. There are examples of spirits of animals accompanying both fellow lingering souls and beings of flesh and bone, but there is not much information on why and how this phenomenon occurs. One explanation could be that they are so attached to their person or environment that they refuse to leave them or it behind for the sake of the afterlife, or at least abandon either permanently, for they may appear and disappear at will. There is an abundance of lore on these phantasmal manifestations, but the goal of today's research is to dive deeply into the ghosts we come across in Skyrim and one example in Solthsheim specifically, as opposed to share all that is known of these beings as a whole. Therefore, after shortly relaying general knowledge of the restless spirits of Mundus, we shall now proceed with our main topic of discussion. I have decided to divide and talk about the spirits of interest based on which hold of Kaizal they haunt, as well as make a few honorable mentions where it is appropriate. I will firstly get the singular instance of perceivable ghosts in Solstheim out of our way before moving on to the mainland. Let us begin. Mora nau Minda. The only specters in Solstheim we can come across are those of the infamous pirate Haafingar Deathbrand, ironically also known as the King of Ghosts due to having conquered the waves of the eponymous sea, and those of his crew. We will meet them at the end of the quest Deathbrand, which will become available to us to complete once we are at least level 36. Its objectives are to find the 4 pieces of Haafingar's Stalgrim armor buried in different locations around the island. But our focus today is not uncovering Deathbrand's treasure maps or even getting our hands on said treasure, even if these are all requirements for being able to enter Haafingar's chamber in Gildenhall Barrow, where the pirate is laid to rest. We are here to discuss Haafingar's and what little is known of his crew's stories. And what better way to do so than to read the book Deathbrand by artist Drallan, a scribe of House Redguard. No matter how much of it is true and how much fiction, it is the only source on Haafingar's life, or rather its twilight, we have at our disposal, as well as scarce information on 2 of his most notable crew members. I quote, Haafingar Deathbrand was dying. For Garuk Winterhold, ship's quartermaster, it was unthinkable. His grandfather had served under Haafingar nigh on 60 years before, and even then he was a legend among pirates of the north. The King of Ghosts, they called him, as eternal and pitiless as the sea he sailed. To Garuk, who had seen him charge into battle, clad in armor of gleaming stalagrim like the kings of old, his twin swords scything men like grass, Haafingar was practically a god. But none feared Haafingar more than his own crew. They knew his rages, his fits of madness, how he delighted in torture and murder for its own sake. And there were even darker rumors. Some said he fed upon the blood and souls of those he killed to extend his unnatural life. Some thought him a daedra loosed upon the mortal world. And others said he owed his life and power, his armor and swords, to a pact with Dagon, Prince of Destruction. And the seal of that pact was the terrible wound that scarred his face, never to heal, the Deathbrand, which no man could look upon without flinching. All these things ran through Garuk's mind as he took his place on deck at the head of the crew, exchanging a curt nod with Thalin, the ship's helmsman and his chief rival. By sundown, he thought one of them would be captain, the other would be dead. When Haafingar finally emerged from his cabin, the crew fell silent. He looked frail, his voice raspy. But even so, he had a presence about him. As he looked over his men, the most brutal murderers ever to ply the northern seas, not one could meet his gaze. At last, he sighed. You wish to know who will be my successor and how my share of the treasure shall be divided. That was the question, but even so, there were murmurs of protest. Haafingar cut them off. All these years I have looked for one who was worthy to take my place, or strong enough to take it from me. Not one of you even comes close, and so none of you shall have it. He extended his hand. In Dagon's name, I place a curse upon my armor and my swords, this ship and all it carries. Until the day when one of you can best me in combat, you shall have not a single coin. He looked up at them. Be grateful I have left you with your lives." Garuk and Thalin shared a single glance. Had anyone else said such a thing, there would have been mutiny. 100 treasure-mad pirates against one old man. But this was Haafingar. The crew was silent. Haafingar threw a map at Garuk's feet. "Garuk, take a longboat and bury my armor in the places I have marked. Thalin, we sail to my tomb where you shall leave me with my gold. Then burn your ships and do as you will. I am your captain no more." And with that he turned and stalked back to his quarters. At daybreak, Garuk took his leave and set out in a longboat with 3 of his men. They landed on a shoal to the north of Solthsheim at the place Haafingar had marked, made camp, and began to dig. But already greed stirred in Garuk's heart. Time and time again he glanced at the iron-bound chest they had brought with them. The old man was gone, perhaps already dead. His orders, foolish. That night, Garuk pried open the chest and drew out the helm within. The stalagrim shimmered in the moonlight. It was time. Time for a new king of ghosts to rise. He placed the helmet on his head, and he screamed. And it is said you can hear that screaming still on moonlit nights on a rocky shoal off the northern coast of Solthsheim. Postscript. This story is one of the last in the Haafingar saga, the tales surrounding the life and adventures of the legendary pirate king Haafingar Deathbrand. How much of it is actually true, if indeed any of it is true, I leave to the reader's discretion. Artis Drallen, House Redguard Scribe. Unfortunately, we cannot find any other volumes from the Haafingar saga to get an even better picture of what the legendary pirate and his crew were like. We do not even know how much of what is written within Deathbrand is true, aside from the fact that the pieces of his armor were indeed hidden in 4 different places on Solthsheim, and he himself was buried with his treasure. Regardless, this is what we can uncover about Haafingar's and his pirate stories. It is unclear which, if any, of the 19 phantasmal manifestations that ate his ghost in his battle against us belong to Garuk or Thalin either. As for why he and supposedly they have lingered on Mundus, it is entirely possible for all 20, if we count the King of Ghosts, specters we face were only summoned back to Mundus by us taking Bloodsight. Haafingar's spirit seems to have had an attachment to this weapon, as well as the rest of his armor, and it is logical for him to have re-emerged from whatever afterlife his soul was residing in to challenge us to a fight. And due to his crew being loyal, or perhaps terrified into serving him during their lifetimes, I expect their souls felt similarly after the death of their mortal shells, thus they responded to his call. There is another option nonetheless, a personal theory of mine based on observation and the lore written within the Elder Scrolls. I do believe that Haafingar's own soul was indeed tied to the realm of Mundus, maybe to his treasure, armor, and scimitars, until we slayed him again, and I think he may have even possibly been a necromancer. Upon vanquishing his spectral form, his ghostly remains will have their own unique coloring, purple, and they are the only remnants of a disembodied soul in this shade in the entire game. Not even Queen Patema, who is said to have possessed an exceptionally powerful spirit and is a confirmed necromancer, she will be our focus shortly, leaves such cadaver behind. But what is even more intriguing is that the King of Ghosts will also drop a black soul gem, and it is logical to assume it is Haafingar's own soul that is trapped within it. This would tie into him having made a deal with the Daedra in exchange for his mightiness and even his armor and twin scimitars. Although this small spirit entrapment would mean he was connected not to Mehrunes Dagon, but either to the ideal masters of the Soul Cairn or Moloch Ball. Black soul gems can be found in the depths of Cold Harbor, the latter Daedric prince's realm of oblivion, and one of his aliases is the Harvester of Souls. What little is known of who Haafingar was as a person and the legends surrounding him, he does sound like a possible champion, or a pawn for that matter, of the Lord of Domination. And if he had made a deal with the ideal masters, which mostly necromancers seeking more power do, The black soul gem he drops fits like a glove as well. Furthermore, him summoning the specters of members of his crew to fight us can easily be viewed as a necromantic spell and ability, as opposed to them answering his call simply because they're still afraid of or loyal to him, even in death. But I digress. I feel this is a possible and fruitful topic for a separate investigation, therefore I shall cease with the speculation regarding the King of Ghosts here. Regardless of what the truth is, if the soul within the black gem is indeed his, then once we use it for enchanting, he will not spend his eternity very pleasantly. A fitting end for a cruel, power-hungry pirate, I would say. Amativ Mubo. Let us continue with Haafingar, Skyrim's smallest province where the capital city of Solitude is located. There are two instances of hauntings to be investigated in this particular region. We will begin with discussing the ghost of the infamous Wolf Queen Patema Septim. We will first see her figuratively blackened, literally purple soul in Wolf Skull Cave. Once we arrive at the location, we will witness a group of gullible necromancers attempt to return Patema to the realm of Mundus and bind her spirit to their wills. A ritual we intercept.
Wolf Queen, hear our call and awaken. We summon Patema.
We summon Patema.
Long have you slept the dreamless sleep of death, Patema. No longer. Hear us, Wolf Queen. We summon you.
We summon Patema.
Yes! Yes! Return me to this realm! As our voices summon you, the blood of the innocent binds you, Wolf Queen. Summon with words bound by blood. What? What are you doing, you fools? You cannot bind me to your wills.
Summon with words bound by blood.
You ants don't have the power to bind me.
Unfortunately, we do not manage to vanquish the Wolf Queen's soul, for it flies out of the cavern. Sometime after the incident, we are summoned to the Blue Palace, and from there, we are sent to speak to Styr, the priest of Arche in charge of Solitude's Hall of the Dead. He informs us of Patema's current location, and namely her own catacombs beneath the city, and instructs us to bring her remains to him, so that he can sanctify them. Once inside, she will taunt us with the reward of serving her post-mortem.
You've arrived at last. The heroine who prevented me from being bound returns to my fold. I have much to thank you for, little one. When you die, I will raise you, and you can take your place by my side.
And raise the dead within the halls to vanquish us. In vain. We will also face a number of vampires within the catacombs. When we finally reach her sanctum, we have the opportunity to deal with the Wolf Queen once and for all, and rescue the people of Solitude and indeed the entirety of Skyrim from her greedy necromantic hands. Through his cleansing ritual, Styr ensures what occurred will not happen again. As for Patema's story, there is a book as well as a series of tomes concerning her, and namely, Biography of the Wolf Queen by Catar Erephanes and the fictional writings The Wolf Queen by Wolfgang Jart. I shall read excerpts from the first work, for it relies on historical facts. Let us begin. Few historic figures are viewed as unambiguously evil, but Patema, the so-called Wolf Queen of Solitude, surely qualifies for that dishonor. Born to the imperial family in the 67th year of the Third Era, Patema was immediately presented to her grandfather, the Emperor Uriel Septim II, a famously kind-hearted man who viewed the solemn, intense babe and whispered, "She looks like a she-wolf about ready to pounce." By the age of 14, Patema was a famous beauty with many suitors, but she was married to cement relations with King Mantiarco of the Nordic Kingdom of Solitude. She entered the court, it was said, as a pawn, but she quickly became a queen. The elderly King Mantiaco loved her and allowed her all the power she wished, which was total. When Uriel Septim II died the following year, her father was made emperor. In year 97 of the Third Era, after many miscarriages, the Queen of Solitude gave birth to a son, who she named Uriel after her grandfather. Mantiaco quickly made Uriel his heir, but the queen had much larger ambitions for her child. 2 years later, Pelagius II died, many say poisoned by a vengeful former council member, and his son, Patema's brother Antiochus, took the throne. Mantiaco, king of Solitude, died the springtide after Pelagius II. Uriel ascended the throne, ruling jointly with his mother. Doubtless, Uriel had the right and would have preferred to rule alone, but Patema convinced him that his position was only temporary. He would have the empire, not merely the kingdom. In Castle Solitude, she entertained dozens of diplomats from other kingdoms of Skyrim, sowing seeds of discontent. For 13 years, Antiochus ruled Tamriel and proved an able leader despite his moral laxity. Several historians point to prove that Patema cast the spell that ended her brother's life, but evidence one way or another is lost in the sands of time. In any event, both she and her son Uriel were visiting the imperial court when Antiochus died, and immediately challenged the rule of his daughter and heir, Quintira. Despite Patema's eloquence, the Elder Council allowed Quintira to assume the throne as the Empress Quintira II. Patema and Uriel angrily returned to Skyrim and began assembling the rebellion. Details of the War of the Red Diamond are included in other histories. We need not recount the Empress Quintira II's capture and eventual execution in High Rock in the year 114 of the Third Era, nor the ascension of Patema's son, Uriel III, 7 years later. Her surviving brothers, Severus and Magnus, fought the emperor and his mother for years, tearing the empire apart in a civil war. When Uriel III fought his uncle Severus in Hammerfell at the Battle of Ichidak in year 127 of the Third Era, Patema was fighting her other brother, Uriel's uncle Magnus, in Skyrim at the Battle of Falkenstar. She received word of her son's defeat and capture just as she was preparing to mount an attack on Magnus's weakest flank. The 61-year-old Wolf Queen flew into a rage and led the assault herself. It was a success, and Magnus and his army fled. In the midst of the victory celebration, Patema heard the news that her son, the Emperor, had been killed by an angry mob before he had even made it for trial in the imperial city. He had been burned to death within his carriage. When Severus was proclaimed Emperor, Patema's fury was terrible to behold. She summoned Daedra to fight for her, had her necromancers resurrect her fallen enemies as undead warriors, and mounted attack after attack on the forces of the Emperor Severus I. Her allies began leaving her as her madness grew, and her only companions were the zombies and skeletons she had amassed over the years. The Kingdom of Solitude became a land of death. Stories of the ancient Wolf Queen being waited on by rotting skeletal chambermaids and holding war plans with vampiric generals terrified her subjects. Patema died after a month-long siege on her castle in the year 137 of the Third Era, at the age of 70. While she lived, she had been the Wolf Queen of Solitude, daughter of the Emperor Pelagius II, wife of King Mantiaco, aunt of the Empress Quintira II, mother of Emperor Uriel III, and sister of the Emperors Antiochus and Severus. Her death has hardly diminished her notoriety. Though there is little direct evidence of this, some theologians maintain that her spirit was so strong she became a Daedra after her death, inspiring mortals to mad ambition and treason. It is also said that her madness so infested Castle Solitude that it infected the next king to rule there. In addition to this wonderfully crafted text by Cater Eriphanes, real-life author Ted Peterson, here is what Styr says about Patema.
A curious figure. Unrepentantly evil and nasty, of course, but also astonishingly brilliant, and obviously quite a necromancer at her end. She was always so close to being Empress, but despite her machinations, it was never to be hers. Ironically, if she were alive today, she'd be the only living member of the Septim bloodline. By all rights, she would now be Empress.
And only to make matters worse for her enemies and the people of Solitude and Skyrim, truth be told, as one of the dragon blood, she was capable of wielding the Thu'um, as evidenced during our battle with her spectre. Nonetheless, Kaizal need not worry about her for a very, very long while, hopefully for eternity. We now move on to a place geographically located in Haafingar, so extraordinary and especially isolated, hence why it has remained hidden from most, if not all, for thousands of years. The breath-stealing Forgotten Vale. The phantasmal manifestations we come face to face with in this sacred snow elven wonderland, as well as one we will make acquaintance with in Darkfall Passage before proceeding to the valley, are those of Prelate Sidanius, Athring, Celegriat, Nirelor, and Edelbor. These snow elves all have very similar behavior and dialogue, fulfilling their roles and continuing to do their duty in death.
Welcome, Initiate. This is the Way Shrine of Illumination. Are you prepared to honor the mantras of Ariel and fill your vessel with his enlightenment? Then behold Ariel's gift, my child. May it light your path as you seek tranquility within the inner sanctum.
The only oath that changes is the title of the Way Shrine they guard and their parting phrase to the Dovahkiin, once more depending on the sanctum they are tied to and its specific purpose.
May Ariel's brilliance illuminate your path. May Ariel's warmth imbue your body with strength. May Ariel's glow shield you from your enemy. May Ariel's radiance fill your heart with joy. May Ariel's light guide you in your darkest hours.
Additionally, here is what Gelebor will say of them when asked.
They're ghosts of the snow elf priests that tended the way shrines before being slaughtered by the betrayed. Through the grace of Auriel, they were restored to their spectral form to enable them to continue their duties. I'm afraid in their current form, they still believe the Chantry to be an active center of worship. They won't respond to you in any way other than believing that you're an initiate and you're undertaking the journey to the inner sanctum.
And so these are the vaguely known to us stories of the snow elven prelates of Auriel. I believe they are examples of disembodied souls which, while not having passed to Aetherius, are rather at peace in the place and shape they find themselves in. I hope that the Time Dragon will be gracious enough to allow them to join him in his realm if a moment arrives for them to wish to leave Mundus behind, once they feel their duties have been fulfilled. Let us continue with ghosts found in the Pale. The first location one comes across a visible spectre is the Nordic ruin of Volunrud, where the ghost of an ancient Nordic hero under the name of Kvenel the Tongue can be found. As his name suggests, he was a master of the Thu'um. Not much is known of him aside from this, and the fact that his preferred weapons were the hand axe Okin and the one-handed sword Edush. There is a legend surrounding the crafting of the former, according to which Kvenel commissioned it to the blacksmith Haman Forgefire so that his beloved Edush could have an equal in combat. There is an intriguing fictive book revolving around this blacksmith, but seeing as he is not our focus today, we shall refrain from going over it. Unless our game suffers from a common bug, we will find the body of the Nordic warrior Hedig Volunar at the entrance of Volunrud, on whom we will uncover a journal. His writings reveal to us that, following old hymns and tales, he began searching for Kvenel's tomb. Hedig also shares that the ancient Nordic hero, whose spectre we come face to face with, was hardly believed to be real by most. His journal will then give us the hint that we need ritualistic copies of Okin and Tedush to unlock Volunrud's Elder Cairn and start the quest Silenced Tongues. Another detail about Quenel is that he was apparently chieftain of Volunwood, once a great city from which only the small cairn we come across remains in the 4th era. Ultimately, this is what is known of Quenel the Tongue's story. I am uncertain why he has lingered on the realm of Mundus. Perhaps he perished in battle and still feels he hasn't finished business. Or maybe he chose to stay voluntarily and guard his own tomb. Is he similar to the Snow Elven prelate specters in that he still believes he needs to oversee Volunwood, thinking the city to be in its original state? Whatever the reason for Quenel to still be on Mundus is, we can put him to rest ourselves as soon as we reach the Elder Cairn. The next visible souls of the departed in the Pale are in the Dawnstar Sanctuary of the Dark Brotherhood. The Sanctuary Guardians are the specters of previous members of the Assassin's Guild, and we cannot uncover anything else about them. Only one aught is certain. These spirits were once dedicated members of the Dark Brotherhood and likely lingered to defend the sanctuary from ones who may seek to defile it. Or through their connection with Sithis, they emerge on Mundus in time of need. They also recognize Cicero and do not harm him, as stated in the Unstable Assassin's Journal. The sanctuary is home, as I had dared hope, cool and dark and lovely. My sanctuary, sanctuary from all. I know its every corner, every hall, every shadowed nook and alcove. My sanctuary. The guardians know me, recognize me as keeper. They leave poor Cicero alone. Lucien Lechance's spectre will add to this indirectly by explaining to the listener that the Dread Father, Sithis, does not desire the deranged assassin's death and will put Astrid's orders and leadership into question.
I will kill this jester if you so desire, but there is a disturbance in the void. Our Dread Father does not wish this. The Keeper is a sacred position within the Dark Brotherhood. Ask yourself, do you trust the wisdom of Our Lady?
This is all we can assume regarding the ghosts in the Dawnstar Sanctuary. Whilst on the topic, the former speaker of the Dark Brotherhood is an honorable mention of our current research, and a wonderful callback and tribute to a most beloved character from Oblivion. He does not haunt any place in particular, as we are aware, but rather answers our call should we summon him, and offers unique commentary while we travel across the land of Skyrim. I am certain many heroes of Kvatch were ecstatic to have Lucien at their sides once more throughout their stories as Dovahkiin during the 4th era. As for his tale, which many are familiar with, in his youth he traveled to Skyrim, and as he tells us, he found himself in the city of Riften at one time.
I do so love Riften. I journeyed here in my youth. A thief took my purse, so I took his eyes. It was a fair exchange.
He came into possession of the Blade of Woe at some point and became speaker for the Dark Brotherhood, more specifically the Cheydinhal Sanctuary, after the previous individual who held this position was killed while fulfilling a contract.
When I first joined the family, this sanctuary was controlled by another speaker. Lucien took over when she was killed while fulfilling a contract.
Lucien resided in the abandoned Fort Farragut northwest of the city and was responsible for recruiting members for the infamous Assassin's Guild.
You sleep rather soundly for a murderer.
He had a very special bond with the undead horse Shadowmere.
Shadowmere, my old and dear friend.
And trained the Shadow Scales Ochiva and Tainava since they were hatchlings. In fact, they see him as a surrogate father.
Ochiva and I have known Lucien since we were hatchlings. He is the one who trained us in the way of the Shadow Scale, and is like a father to us.
In his past as a Dark Brotherhood killer, he murdered the mother of Matthew Bellamon, who, rightfully so, sought vengeance against Lucien and integrated himself into the Order of the Black Hand, the ruling body of the Dark Brotherhood. He had two goals in mind. to kill the man who took his parent away from him and destroy the Night Mother and subsequently the Brotherhood once and for all. Matthew's plan worked out halfway, for due to his actions, a purification of the sanctuary was performed because of the presence of an unknown to the assassin's traitor who was the man himself. He also indirectly gave false dead drop contracts to Lucian's silencer, resulting in the deaths of members of the Black Hand, including the listener. Lachance was then framed as the betrayer, and before the silencer was able to clear his name, he was uncovered by the remaining members of the Black Hand and murdered, and his corpse defiled and mutilated. Upon the death of Okjor Braan, his mortal body, Lucian's soul returned to the void, Sithis, and as evidenced previously, can be summoned by the Fourth Era's listener to aid him or her in any way he could.
I live again.
The next honorable mention is clad in ethereal wisp wrappings and can be uncovered in the depths of Frostmere Crypt. I am referring to the legendary Pale Lady, a wisp mother unique in name and behavior. I talk about her and Egbrinahe, her sisters, in a lot more length in my investigation regarding wisp mothers, wisps, will-o-wisps, and the motes of Ingle Barrow. As I say in that work of mine, one of the theories regarding these ethereal feminine beings as a whole is that they are ghosts of snow elven women. While this statement is not confirmed, I believe the Pale Lady deserves some attention in today's research as well. There are stories of her which treat her as a wandering spirit, as is written in the book Lost Legends by Talsgar the Elder, Archivist of Winterhold. I quote, "For generations the people of Morthal have told whispered tales of the Pale Lady, a ghostly woman who wanders the northern marshes, forever seeking her lost daughter. Some say she steals children who wander astray, others that her sobbing wail strikes dead all those who hear it. But behind these tales may lie a kernel of truth, for ancient records speak of Omriel, a mysterious figure Ysgramor's heirs battled for decades and finally sealed away." While the legends referring to the Pale Lady spread like dragonfire in Hjaalmarch, and more specifically the region surrounding Morthal, her location is in the Pale, which is why I mention her while we are still focused on the latter province. Aside from what is written by Talsgar the Elder, two more details which tie into her possibly being a ghost are that she has a unique relationship with the Pale Blade and is capable of sending dreams. Whether or not she has possessed this weapon, or if her spirit simply became attached to it for one reason or another, her connection to and containment dependent on the ancient Nordic sword are in line with a restless spirit latching onto an inanimate object. If there is truth to her being the enigmatic Omriel that Ysgramor's heirs fought against for a long while, perhaps she was slain by the Pale Blade and her spirit bound to it. What is intriguing is that, in spite of being contained by the ancient Nordic blade, once it is stolen from the depths of Frostmere Crypt by the bandit chief Kyr, she pushes for its return, despite technically being freed with its removal. As for sending dreams and visions, as mentioned previously, ghosts are capable of doing so, and the Pale Lady communicates her desire for the sword's return to Rajir through night terrors, as evidenced by what is written in Isa's journal, that her Khajiiti friend would wake screaming and rambling about the Pale Lady until eventually he could barely slumber at all due to immediately being awakened by threatening visions. I missed to mention this detail in my research on wisp mothers, wisps, and will-o-wisps, thus I am remedying my oversight here. A disembodied spirit or not, this particular wisp mother was an honorable mention I definitely wished to cover. Now let us move on. The next cult we will discuss is Eastmarch. There are two locations there where specters manifest, and namely, the abandoned prison and the ancient Nordic ruin Ansilbund. Let us commence with the former. This imperial penitentiary suffered the wrath of Kain an unknown number of years before we discover it during the Fourth Era. As its name suggests, it was deserted due to being flooded by the rising waters of the White River during an unforgiving storm. The numerous skeletons scattered around the dilapidated building prove that many were not fortunate enough to escape in time, even if some made a valiant effort of it, with at least 3 seemingly having managed to leave the fort but not survive the flood. Environmental storytelling suggests that the majority, if not all, of the remains belong to the prisoners, who were likely either slain by the legionnaires or left to drown. This is what we uncover within the contents of a previously drenched note by the Imperial captain. We can't let the prisoners out, so either kill them or let them drown. Either way, all guards must evacuate as soon as possible. The storm is about to wash this whole fort into the river, and I'll be damned if I have to report 1 Legion death while under my watch. You have your orders. Meanwhile, the prisoners were plotting their own escape, planning to use the cacophony of the impending flood. Here is what another note we can find lying atop the soaked, mossy stones in a premise full of cells says. The storm is coming, I can tell. The water leaking in has become stronger. There is no better time than now. When the storm hits, the guards will be scrambling to figure out what to do with us. Amidst the confusion, we need to overpower the few that will be standing guard outside our cells and hold off the cell block entrance. We need only hold off until I can get one of their swords and break open the drainage grate in the corner of my cell. That's where we'll make our escape. Everyone move down the river and we'll try to find shelter there until the storm passes. If one of the skeletons we find on the other side of the drainage is an indication, the one whose lifeless hand is stretching out towards an imperial sword, this particular outlaw did succeed in leaving their cell and subsequently the fort, even if they did not withstand the storm in the end. Either that or this person, alongside the rest we find lying near the river, drowned in the drainage tunnel connecting the 2 grates and were washed up, provided the drainage was torn open by the wind or something or somebody else. Nonetheless, this is the story of the ghosts that haunt the abandoned prison. Given what we know of specters in Tamriel, it would seem these spirits, all of which presumably belong to outlaws, given the now spectral attire they don, did not accept that they could not escape while alive. Perhaps they view their failed prison break as unfinished business, therefore they still linger in the realm of the living. Or they were rejected passage to their respective afterlives for one reason or another. As for the others, if any we cannot see are to appear in the abandoned prison in the future, then they have not accumulated enough energy and magicka to manifest at the time of our exploration. Regardless, all we can do is defend ourselves against the specters who attack us and at last lay them to rest. The next and final location in Eastmarch where we come across 2 very special spirits is the tomb of Ansilgund. The Nordic ruin is occupied by the Redguard necromancer Lua al-Skaven, who seeks to raise her husband from the grave. He perished while fighting for the Empire during the Great War, and his wife blames his death on the Legion, although she is hardly sympathetic towards the Stormcloaks as well. According to her journal, she plans on raising an undead army to avenge Sa'el, as he was named. Aside from Lua al-Skaven and her undead servants, Ansilgund is occupied by other necromancers who will comment on the absurdity of their presumed mistress's plans of vengeance. Once we vanquish all who stand in our way, we will reach their leader and uncover that she could not raise her husband from the grave. We will eventually help Lua al-Skaven reunite with Sa'el with the aid of our blade or magic, and the spirits of none other than the legendary lovers Fjorgi and Holgir will appear before us. They will express gratitude for setting them free from the necromancer's spell, and gift us the one-of-a-kind weapon Ghostblade.
Thank you for releasing us from her spell.
Now we can rest in peace once again. Come, Fury, my love.
Take this with our gratitude.
Here is the story of the legendary lovers as quoted by the Book of Fjorgi and Holgir by an unknown author. In her 29th summer of life, Fjorgi the huntress met the warlord Holgir on the field of battle. None remember what they fought over, for their love to come was so great it overshadowed all rivalries or disputes. They fought to a standstill as their followers looked on, till her sword broke his axe and his shield dulled her blade, and all could see that they were equals. As the eagle finds its mate, so too did Fjorgi find hers in Holgir, and the time of peace came to the clans of the forest. But as the summer's warmth gives way to winter's chill, so too would this peace pass. But the snake came and bit Holgir, its venom seeping deep into the wound. A whale greeted Fjorgi's view as she came over the snow-covered mountains to the coast. She obtained an elixir from the Akavir and returned to the forest in haste. Though Holgir could smell the winds of Sovngarde, she gave him the elixir and he was cured in an instant. But the snake bit Fjorgi as she poured the last drop into Holgir's mouth, and fatigued from her journey, she joined the ancestors immediately. Holgir's grief was such that he built a tomb and upon completion took his own life that he might rejoin her. Tragic as their tale may have been on Mundus, Fjorgi and Holgir did eventually get their happy ending in the afterlife. Nu Amativ, let us proceed to the next hold of Skyrim, and namely, Falkreath. The fact that not many perceivable spirits can be discovered in this southern area of the land of the Nords comes as a surprise. After all, it has been affiliated with battle and death, as well as Daedric covens including ones of Namira and Hircine since ancient times. But there are only 2 locations within Falkreath's lush boundaries that are inhabited by visible specters. The first is the Twilight Sepulchre, a sanctuary of yet another Daedric prince, and namely Nocturnal, which has existed since before recorded history. Within the ruins one comes across Nightingale Sentinels, the spirits of deceased members of the Sacred Trinity carrying the same name, who were tasked to guard the sepulchre by the Mistress of Shadows and Death. Similarly to the sanctuary guardians of the Dark Brotherhood's Haven near Dawnstar, we cannot learn anything else of them, aside from their vocation and loyalties while they were alive. We find out, however, that due to the Ebonmere, the portal leading to the Everglow, Nocturnal's realm of oblivion, being closed, these sentinels have lost memories of their past lives and their purpose. This is why they attack us, a fellow Nightingale, on sight. This information is relayed to us by none other than Gallus Desidenius' ghost, the former guildmaster of the Thieves' Guild, lover of Carlia, and victim of fiend Tarodis, the treacherous Mercer Frey. Not much is known of what his life was like before his beguiling friend killed him in cold blood, aside from vague information on how he ran the guild and his romantic relationship with his fellow Nightingale Carlia. Gallus kept close ties with influential families in Skyrim, so he and his thieves could operate relatively safely, and is the author of the 2 volumes of the series The Nightingales. It would have been more than a duology had he lived, for in the second book he shares Carlia's ancestry and story, and states he would do the same for Mercer Frey and himself when he gets the chance. Unfortunately, it was not meant to be. According to his lover, he was a scholar as well, and this is evidenced by the complex encryption of his journal, which he wrote using the alphabet of the tongue of the ancient Falmar.
He was a scholar, a master thief, and a natural leader. Everyone respected him and followed him without question.
The Snow Elves' language is so intricate and unique that very few are able to decipher it, let alone be literate enough in it to transliterate it properly. This proves how studious and intelligent Gallus was. Upon the death of his mortal shell, he defended the Twilight Sepulchre alone for 25 years, after his fellow sentinels were all but driven mad due to Mercer's actions and the subsequent closing of the Ebonmere.
With the Ebonmere closed, and their sudden severance from the realm of Everglow, I fear they've undergone a drastic change. They're shadows of their former selves. They no longer remember their true purpose or their original identities.
His spirit thankfully manifested after the portal was sealed, which is why he had remained unaffected by it, at least in the way that the rest of the specters within the ruins were. However, he does inform us that his strength is waning.
My spirit didn't manifest itself in the sepulchre immediately, so fortunately I wasn't present when the Ebonmere was sealed. However, ever since that day, I've felt my power waning, slowly draining away.
He would not have lasted long had the Dova Keen not righted Frey's wrongs and returned the skeleton key to its proper place. Afterwards, Gallus can finally rest as Nocturnal calls him to the Evergloam, for his task has been fulfilled. But not before an emotional farewell between him and Carlia.
Carlia?
Gallus! I feared I would never see you again. I was afraid you'd become like the others.
If it were not for the actions of this nightingale, your fears would have come true. She honors us all.
What will you do now, my love?
Nocturnal calls me to the Everglow. My contract has been fulfilled.
Will I ever see you again?
When your debt to Nocturnal has been paid, we'll embrace once again.
Farewell, Gallus. Eyes open. Walk with the shadows.
Goodbye, Carlia.
The next and final disembodied spirits we can uncover in Falkreath are located in Haldir's cairn. There we will come across the ghost of bandits Haldir, who is also dead, physically at least, had sacrificed and bound to serve him. Eventually we will face the mage's own spectre. His goal is to bring himself back to life by sucking the energy out of any being who wanders into his lair, which is how he has been preserving himself and maintaining his strength. Here is what an unfortunate bandit under the name of Argius shares about the dark forces of the cavern in his journal. Never thought I'd see the day we will run out of knife point gang. Least the storm should cover our tracks. Vidgrot, Raen, and I took shelter in a cave for the night. Looks like there is an old ruin here. Least there are no Draugr around. Vidgrot and Raen both want to set up here for a while, maybe do some raiding. They ought to know better. The road's deserted, especially this time of year. Plenty of better places up north. But they seem awfully insistent about staying here. Wouldn't even lend a hand when I went out to hunt tonight. Something's wrong. Raen hasn't said a word since she woke up this morning, just keeps staring off into space. Vidgrot isn't much better. They sick? Not like any illness I ever heard of. I just walk out on them, but I can't seem to get up the nerve. I feel like something's holding me back. What is this place? We are not alone. I can hear him now. Someone speaking in my mind. Old. Powerful. Haldir, that's the name. He wants something from us. Needs us to stay for the magic to work. I tried to run. Can't. Just like them. Raen jumped first. Onto the cairn. That's what Master wants. Blood, sacrifice, power to live again. His magic, I can feel it pulsing in my blood. He's draining us. We'll serve him soon. Our bodies, our souls. Just like the others. They're waiting. It's my turn. This bandit trio chose the worst possible cavern for shelter, a prime example of bad luck. And as evidenced by Argius' ruminations and the phantasmal manifestations we will come face to face with once we dive deeper into the cave, they were not the only ones. We shall put them all to rest, thus both freeing their spirits and weakening the mage. Haldir's own ghost will only appear to us once we have defeated the elemental manifestations of his form, and after we emerge victorious in the battle against his spectre, he is at last defeated, hopefully for good. Unfortunately, aside from what has already been stated of him, there are no known stories and lore behind Da Sulia Ka Kro, this powerful sorcerer. All we can conclude regarding Haldir is that he was indeed quite skilled in the arcane arts and far from benevolent. As for the ghosts of those he had sacrificed by controlling their minds, their tragic stories became clear to us through the journal we read. And here comes the next honorable mention, a fictive story of a ghostly woman who haunts the pine forest region of Skyrim. This area encompasses Falkreath as well as a portion of Winterhold, but since the latter is more abundant in phantasmal manifestations, I decided to include her while still exploring the spirits of the Stag's region. I speak of the two-volume tale, The Woodcutter's Wife and the Cabin in the Woods, written by Mogan, son of Molag. The tomes are not that lengthy, therefore we shall read them in their entirety. Mukin. We begin with Volume 1, The Woodcutter's Wife. Legend tells of a woodcutter who built a shack deep within the pine forest. There he hoped to live in peace with his family. The woodcutter's family lived well for a time, but without warning the weather turned bitterly cold and spoiled the harvest. Before long, with their meager supply of food all but gone, the family was starving. Late one snowy night, a traveler knocked on the cabin door seeking shelter from the biting cold. Always generous of heart, the woodcutter welcomed the stranger into his home, apologizing that he had no food to offer. With a smile, the traveler cast off his cloak to reveal the garments of a mage. As the woodcutter and his family looked on, the mysterious visitor reached into his satchel and withdrew a scroll tied with a silver ribbon. No sooner had the wizard unfurled the scroll and read the words aloud, when a great feast appeared from out of thin air. That night, nobody in the woodcutter's cabin went hungry. Day by day, the snow piled up. Every night, the mage produced another scroll from his bag and read the words, each time summoning a new feast. On the fifth night, the woodcutter's wife awoke her husband to confess her mistrust of their magical guest. Surely, she argued, there was some price to pay for the magical feasts that everyone enjoyed night after night. The woodcutter would have none of it. After nearly dying from the lack of food, his family was eating well. The divines had sent him a gift, he explained, and it was foolish to question their wisdom. But the woodcutter's wife would not be persuaded. Every night she grew more fearful and more desperate. She was certain that the family had entered into a devil's bargain, and the time would soon come when the mage would ask for something unspeakable in return for his gifts. While everyone in the cabin slept, the woodcutter's wife snuck out of bed and took her husband's axe in hand. She crept into the traveler's room and with one swing lopped off his head. Suddenly, the wizard's disembodied head awoke. His eyes opened wide, and when he beheld his maimed body, he let forth a terrible cry. Awakened by the horrified scream, the woodcutter and his children rushed into the room and gasped at the terrible sight of the decapitated mage. With his last gasp of breath, the traveler laid a fearful curse on the woodcutter's wife. After her mortal death, she was damned to rise once again and walk the woods alone, only to burn at the rising of the sun. To this day, those who walk the pine forest late at night tell tales of a weeping woman glimpsed between the trees. She carries a bloody axe, the stories say, and is terrifying to behold. And Volume 2, The Cabin in the Woods. Late one night a few seasons ago, a soldier was returning home after several bloody battles. He decided he would save some gold and decided to cross the pine forest on foot. The first day of his journey was rather uneventful. The soldier stuck to the main path and kept a brisk pace. When it started getting dark, he set up his bedroll, built a small fire, and cooked up some rabbit he had caught. A fine day indeed, he thought to himself as he fell asleep. Partway through the evening, the soldier was awoken by soft sobbing in the distance. He grabbed his sword, assuming it to be a bandit trick, but pretended to sleep so he could get the jump on them. After a few minutes, the sobbing started moving away from his camp until he could no longer hear it. For the rest of the night, he slept with one eye open. Day 2, the soldier awoke from what rotten sleep he could catch and started off through the forest at a quicker pace, intending to put distance between himself and whatever he had heard last night. As the day went on, it began to rain heavy, so the soldier built himself a little shelter for the evening so he could remain dry while he slept. It took him a little longer to fall asleep with thoughts of the previous night fresh in his mind, but he eventually slept. This time he awoke to sobbing that sounded like it was right outside his shelter. The soldier grabbed his sword and crawled out of the shelter. In front of the fire, he saw the back of a ghostly woman sobbing into her hands. The soldier mustered his courage and asked her what was wrong. No answer. He began to slowly approach, but before he could reach her, she turned and screamed at him. The ghostly woman raised an axe and began to run at the soldier, disappearing before she made contact. The soldier took off into the night with just his sword in hand. He ran until the first light of dawn, where he started to go down the road again, as fast as he could move. The third day was bright and sunny, but the soldier, rattled and sleepless, didn't even notice. He moved as fast as he could, trying to get through the forest before nightfall. As darkness began to fall, he saw a cabin just off the road and thought to himself it would be a good place to hunker down for the night. After arriving at the cabin, he spent some time blocking the doors and windows. Nothing would get in. Despite his preparations, he could not sleep. He sat in what used to be the cabin's bedroom, staring at the barricaded door, shaking. Eventually, he could keep his eyes open no longer and fell asleep. This time, he awoke to laughing on the other side of the barricaded door. It sounded like the woman from before, but he refused to believe it was her. The soldier burst through the barricaded door into the main room to find the ghostly woman from the night before staring at the ground, laughing hysterically with axe in hand. He began to relentlessly attack the ghost woman, but he could feel his strikes were less effective. He used a scroll of firebolt, which drew a scream from her, and she exploded, disappearing. The ordeal was over. The ghost was gone. The soldier slept well that night, and the next day made excellent distance through the woods. As the sun began to set, he came out on the other side of the forest and looked back, remembering the days before. As he turned and started walking away from the woods, he could swear he heard the sobbing again. Krate, a chilling story that is a fruit of Mogan's imagination, for we cannot come across neither a cabin in the forest that matches the description of the one from the story, nor a sobbing ghostly woman covered in spectral blood and carrying an axe. Kogan Rahefadar, thank the gods for that, even if it would have undoubtedly been an intriguing, if a deeply disturbing, find. The next cult we shall focus on is the Colorful Rift. There are 3 locations there where perceivable spirits may be found, and all of them are, in my humble opinion, a masterclass in environmental storytelling. We shall commence with Tolvalt's Cave, and more specifically, the final section of the cavern titled Tolvalt's Crossing. A portion of it only becomes available to us to enter once we have gathered all 24 stones of Baron Zaya for the quest No Stone Unturned and spoken to Vex, who will send us to retrieve the crown of the legendary Dunmar Queen. When we proceed deeper into the cavern, the spirit of a male Dunmar will emerge near his skeletal remains, raising a hand to point in our direction. Fasni, fear not, we will discuss this gesture once we go over the rest of the spirits, for he is not the only one who uses it. As we approach him, he will disappear once we are close enough. Where the ghost stood moments ago, we can find a potion and a faded diary, the first of 3 that shed some light on what occurred in this Falmer-infested location that was once a Dwemer road. What little writing between its pages endured the currents of time says, another dream of Red Mountain erupting. People running as flaming rocks the size of cantons fell from the sky. Can still see my brother's outstretched arm as he tried to reach the Silt Strider and walked right into the boiling waters. Not just Vardenfell, all of Morrowind was hit by the rocks. There is no work and no food will grow under the ashes. We are going to try for Skyrim. This unfortunate soul left Morrowind shortly after the eruption of Sakos Dunma, Red Mountain, in search of a better life where he would not need to worry about starvation and poverty. Sadly, the caravan he traveled with was doomed to take shelter in a Falmer cave. Because he was indeed not alone. As we progress through the crossing, we will see the ruins of the wagon and the skeletal remains of many dark elves. But the tragedy does not end with the ghost of the refugee from Morrowind who never found safety, as is his appropriate description in the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages. For when we go deeper, another spirit of a male Dunmer will manifest before our eyes, one whose actions imply praise of his favorite deity, or rather, given the situation, prayer. His tattered journal lays atop the table behind him and reads as follows. Map we traded a glass dagger to get is a fake. We can't find the pass marked over the mountains. Should have tried for the rift. Took shelter from the storm in the ruins, stepped on a pressure plate and trapped us inside. Gildren said he's heard the dwarven roads that lead under the mountains. Have to try. And try the unlucky group did, only to meet all of their demises at the hands of the feral Falmer inhabiting Tolvald's cave. This particular spirit, I believe, manifests before our eyes while praying for mercy from Azura or whichever god he bowed to, for we are aware of how the twisted snow elves treat their prisoners. He likely pleaded and pleaded, only for his requests to remain unheard and unanswered. Perhaps this Dunmer even perished while begging the gods to grant him mercy. Saint Veloth knows what manner of tortures he had been subjected to while he drew breath. And now we go back near the opening of the crossing. As soon as we turn the corner, we will be greeted by the ghost of a dark elven woman, which manifests briefly next to a number of skeletal remains. She will point at us, linger in the spot her spirit materialized in, and then vanish as soon as we get close enough. Near where we saw her, there are several skeletons, but two among them stand out. One is pierced by Falmer arrows, and judging by where they sunk into the person's once present flesh, he or she perished immediately. The second is crushed by a rock slide, skeletal hand reaching towards a staff. The journal we find in close vicinity to the remains reads as follows. Hearing things in the darkness, every sound seems amplified and it is hard to sleep over the sobbing. Madras has started hallucinating from hunger. She says she saw a white elf peering out at us from the dark corners of the tunnel. Used to be a battle mage and tried to hold him off. Caused the cave-in that let some escape, but we were trapped with these things. Now hold us prisoner, given up hope of escape. Since each diary we uncovered was connected to the ghost emerging near it, it is safe to assume the woman who appeared before us was the battle mage. As she shares that the Falmer held the ones who were not on the other side of the cave-in she caused prisoners, including her herself, then we may conclude the skeleton reaching out to the staff is not hers, and that the arcane weapon was dropped there when the snow elves overpowered and captured her and the survivors of the skirmish. As for the gestures the battle mage and the Dunmer who lost his brother do, I believe these motions to be a way for them to wave over their brothers and sisters at the time they were trudging through the caverns. The ghost of Svaknir the Bard in Dead Man's Respite, who will be our focus near the end of our research, does the same thing as a means to get us to follow him through King Olaf's tomb. Given that one of the Dark Elven ghosts manifested while praising or praying to his favorite deity, showing us a glimpse of his past while Tul Nalas still alive, it is logical for the other disembodied souls to have appeared to us in the same manner. Either that or they are trying to get us to come closer and read what is left of their tattered diaries, in order to finally be discovered and their stories to become known to somebody. I did also toy with the idea of these spirits trying to warn us to stay back, lest we fall victim to the Falmer within Torvald's cave like them, but given what we concluded regarding Svaknir, that seems less likely to me. As per their reasoning to linger on Mundus, firstly, they may not. They manifest only briefly, and we are aware that some spirits can intercept their rest and emerge in the world of the living for one reason or another. And if they have remained, given how gruesomely they perished and that they never did achieve their goal while alive, to find safety and home in a strange new land, it makes sense their souls have not found the serenity of the afterlife. Maybe they have not accumulated enough energy to speak to us and remain visible for a longer period of time, hence why they disappear as soon as we approach them. And the praying Dunmer we come across would be a similar case. And now we reach the final underground chamber haunted by 3 Dunmeri spirits, the one holding Baron Zaya's crown. Unlike the previous disembodied souls we came across, these 3 warriors will be hostile. They seem to defend the Queen's headdress from grasping hands. I speculate that these dark elves were possibly the guards of the caravan, or rather what remained of them. They were likely separated from the rest of their group by the cave-in the battle mage caused, and judging by the skeletons scattered around this final premise, could not find a way out of Torvald's crossing and perished alongside their brethren. Or the woman's spell was so strong, it caused rock slides on the other side as well, unwillingly killing the rest of their group. I suspect they did their best to protect the refugees from the Falmer, but ultimately failed to save them and their own lives. None of the journals mention caravan guards, but that can easily be explained by the fact these diaries are tattered and most of what was written within was lost to corrosion. Another possibility is that these are the thieves of the crown Vex mentions when we show her an unusual gem, the ones who scattered the stones of Baron Zaya to cover their tracks. But honestly, I find the previous and next speculations much more likely than this. The third theory I came up with is that these ghosts are much older than the ones of the unfortunate Dark Elven refugees. Perhaps they were Queen's Guard to Baron Zaya herself, sworn to protect her from any and all dangers. What if they were so devoted to her that after her and or their deaths, these 3 Valokke guardian spirits attached themselves to a piece of their monarch that outlived her mortal shell, her unique crown? Regardless of these ghosts' origins, one thing is clear. They have a connection to Baron Zaya's headdress and are willing to kill any who dare approach it. All evidence points at the caravan having carried the crown, and since their goal would have been to preserve this piece of Dunmeri history, the spectral Queen's Guard did not manifest and harm the refugees like they do with us. We can do nothing aside from finally lay them to rest. The next haunted location we shall turn our attention to is Forelhost, the last known bastion of the dragon cult. Before we enter the ruins, we will be greeted by an Altmer who claims he works for General Tullius and wears a Stormcloak bear armor. Who would not be convinced of his honesty? Before opening the entrance to the ancient Nordic structure to retrieve the dragon priest Dragot's mask to aid the Thalmor causes the Empire in the war effort, he will warn us that the place is extremely haunted. And as soon as we set foot in the temple, we will see this for ourselves, because the ghost of a dragon cultist will manifest near the corpse of an imperial soldier. He is far from the only one we shall come across as we delve deeper into Forelhost. Men and women loyal to Alduin and his Dovahe, warriors and mages alike, shall emerge to guard the once hidden city from us. The Arcane Masters also wield Dragon Priest daggers, which is unsurprising given their loyalties. Ragot's Fallen Kingdom is one of the possible locations in which the unique blade Kabozine's Fang may spawn, as we set out to aid Tolvdir in his alteration project when we ourselves have advanced our skill in this magical school. I have done a research on the Fang in the past where you may learn more of it if you wish, therefore let us return to the topic at hand. The story of these specters, as well as the entire population of Forelhost, is deeply unsettling and saddening. The short retelling is that as soon as his kingdom was discovered by High King Harald's forces while they were hunting snow elves in the mountains, Ragot ordered his subjects to commit mass in order not to fall to Skorm's Snowstrider's forces and thus have him and his men leave the city without venturing deeper inside. Every man, woman, and child perished either by blade to the throat or wrists or poison that they voluntarily drank. At a certain point, the water well itself was filled with poison. Ragot, like all other dragon priests, was entombed, yet undead, due to having achieved lichdom, in the refectory of Forohost. As for the long story, it is shared in ancient notes, skeletal remains and buried bodies scattered across the place. The first we will come across is Skorm Snowstrider's journal, situated on a table on the ruin's first level, which is guarded by 2 dragon cultist ghosts. Here are the excerpts of it related to our current discussion. It sounds impossible, but we appear to have stumbled upon a massive holdout of the dragon cultists, who were believed to be wiped out during the Dragon War. The elves must wait, as this is a threat we cannot ignore. If we are quick, we may also be able to catch them unaware and avoid a lengthy siege. 3rd week of the siege. If that blasted storm hadn't caught us off guard and slowed our ascent, we might have taken the monastery, but as it stands, we may be in for several more weeks of pounding on their walls. I've sent word to Harald to send one of the voice masters to help bring down the wall. We've brought down their main gate thanks to the young voice master, but the brash lad took an arrow in the neck in the process. The cultists have fallen back to the interior of the monastery, but soon enough we will breach those defenses. We entered the monastery today only to find all inside dead. It appears they purposely caved in the stairway to the refectory and then took their own lives. Some appear to have slit their own wrists, others we found with empty vials. Most appear to be poisoned, but oddly there are not as many empty bottles as one would expect by the number of dead. We shall hold up here overnight rather than face the cold and explore the catacombs in the morning to see if we can find another passage to the upper areas. May the Eight protect us from dragons and madmen. We lost half our remaining men today. We discovered a well in the catacombs, locked but with several buckets already filled, and in their excitement for a drink that didn't risk frostbite on their tongue, 2 score drank before we could stop them. Gods only know how these cultists could use that terrible poison in their own water supply. We've lost more men to this catastrophe than we did taking the courtyard. The well was locked from the side, and the key must be somewhere in the catacombs, but with the ghosts of these dead cultists and the man demoralized, it just isn't worth the search. Let these gods-forsaken cultists drink their way to oblivion and be done with it. The upper door in the courtyard has some sort of barrier over it, and our mages believe that the sacrifice made here will sustain it for decades at least. Aside from the ancient Nordic commander's written expression, we can read the words of some of the cultists, as well as Ragot's orders. In Forohost's crypt, in a chamber close to the entrance to the place's next wing, rests an ancient note that says, "Skorm and his dogs shall never take us alive. Thoralot has foreseen the return of the dragons and has given instructions that we are to poison the well. Better that we should die than fall into the hands of these infidels. They have forgotten that the gods were once dragons and shall give us life again once they return." This Thoralot the author speaks of could have very well been a seer or a lower-ranking priest. Regardless, this cultist supports Ragot's plan wholeheartedly, convinced everyone's deaths will only be temporary. And this person is not alone in his or her ruminations. As we walk deeper and deeper into this haunted and haunting ruin, and more specifically its final wing, the refectory, we will find ourselves in a spacious premise, once a dining area, now a graveyard to rival Falkreath's. There, atop the table, we will uncover a note by a cultist who states the following with absolute certainty. "In a near afar across the seas of time, it has been foreseen that Alduin shall return to cleanse the land in the fires of his wrath. Ragot is right. The walls will soon be breached by the heretics, and we must secure the inner sanctum. Do not fear the embrace of death, for it shall last only until the dragons rise again. Then we too shall walk the lands and bring back the true faith. Alduin did not appear to get the opportunity to prove this devotee's claims right, too occupied resurrecting his brethren, but the author of the note was correct in that the World Eater would eventually return. It seems like he or she has also heard Thorolot's prophecy. The next area where a note can be uncovered is a resting place of old children in the monastery, surrounded by a garden of death bells, snowberries, canis root, and mountain flowers. Ragot's order can be found on a pedestal next to a kettle full of violet blossoms, ready to be concocted into poisons. All the blossoms are to be harvested at once and brought up to the alchemical lab, then clear space and begin burial of the children's bodies. It seems the younglings were among the first to perish, no doubt with the promise to their parents and them, in case they were old enough to understand, that their slumber would only last until Alduin and the rest of their Dovrahe dragon gods returned to resurrect and award their faithful servants. Alas, their lives were cut short for good. Continuing along our path, we will enter an alchemical laboratory, whose potion makers, who once mixed ingredients to cure and strengthen, were commanded to craft poisons to fell themselves and their own. A note we will uncover there will tell us that not everyone had the intention to blindly follow Ragot's plan. The head alchemist herself, named Froda, opposed Ekmul Sonak, her ruling priest, and attempted to convince her fellow devotees of the madness and redundancy of his plan. But surely we cannot use these poisons on our own brothers and sisters. This plan is madness. Even if the main stairway is collapsed and they find those in the front chambers poisoned, there is no telling that they will stop from clearing the rubble and coming through to burn our bodies before Alduin's return. Ragot, it is not that I fear death or refuse to lay down my life in the service of the gods. The snow elf raids in the northern lands may not be enough to draw off the snow strider when he finds us dead. All know of his tenacity. If we are to die, then let us die with blades in our hands rather than with poison on our lips and daggers at our children's throats. Signed, Head Alchemist Froda. Nonetheless, Ragot was having none of her dissent. This is his response. Froda, do not deter the other alchemists from their work. Your views are known to me, and we shall have words about them shortly. Signed, Ragot. If they exchanged words or not is irrelevant. Froda was killed for challenging Fin Sonak, the priest's orders. We can find her body resting atop a throne, the letter we just read still beneath her palm. She was either rather strong, or those who carried out Ragot's orders were so blinded by fanaticism and desire to ensure she would not survive, for we can see 2 arrows, as well as a sword buried in her body. I do hope this courageous and benevolent soul found peace. And the final chamber locked behind the dragon claw door contains the priest himself. I honestly suspect his actions, which can be interpreted as twisted and misplaced devotion to his subjects, were selfish and self-serving. To me, Ragot sought to ensure his own future survival and nobody else's, trusting that once his orders were carried out, the Nords would leave before reaching the final chamber of the refractory. Snowstrider's journal thus mentioned that the sacrifices of the cultists would maintain the magical barrier, sealing this section of Forelhost at least for decades. Regardless, once and for all, we can ensure he and his fanatical followers will not rise again, and avenge Froda, the children, and those who may have been opposed to his mad plan. His mask will no longer be his to wear. Ultimately, this is the horrifying story of the ghosts that haunt Forelhost. They are the restless spirits of those who took the lives of their brothers and sisters, as well as their own, in order to avoid falling victim to Skorm Snowstrider and his troops. They believed they would one day return and walk the land as living dragon devotees. As we know, their sacrifice was in vain, for Alduin did not swoop down to bring them back, even though his actions throughout our stories suggest he probably would have eventually, given his seemingly wishes to rebuild his empire. I believe it is all but confirmed this is the reason they lingered on Mundus, as well as to guard Host even in death. No matter their actions and loyalties, let us grant them peace at long last. The final haunted location in the Rift, which is rather different from the previous two and unique as a whole, is the Dwemer ruin Avanchen Zel. Normally, we would only be able to enter it once we begin the quest in Fathomable Depths, but according to many sources, the entrance to the Eternal City, as is its rough translation in Tamrielic, is glitched and can be accessed at any given point. Regardless, we shall head to Riften's fishery and speak to a distressed and seemingly deranged Argonian named From Deepest Fathoms, whom we will see pacing back and forth and muttering to herself.
I could have left it behind. I could have put it back where it came from. It is done. I won't go back to Avanchen Zel. I won't.
If we approach her, she will immediately persist that we take the lexicon from her and return it to Avanchen Zel at once. We will of course agree and head to the Dwemer ruin. Shortly after we enter, ghostly visages, including one of From Deepest Fathoms, who is very much alive, will appear. Before we dive into what little we know about these specters as presented by them themselves, I wish to touch on the phenomenon of visions and memories. One of the abilities of Spirits of Nirn that I chose to explain now, as opposed to at the beginning, is to open portals allowing one, in this case us, to glimpse into their past and more specifically, the last moments of their lives. They are also capable of utilizing their energy to channel illusionary recreations of what occurred shortly before they departed to the afterlife. We will deal with a similar case as we explore the haunting in Bromjunar, also known as Labyrinthian, when we move on to Hjaalmarch Hold. This explains how we are capable of seeing the specter of one who did not join the projector of his or her memories in death, and in the case of Avanchen Zel specifically, there may be another possible interpretation, but more on that later. Now let us observe what this group of coinant knowledge seekers has to show us about themselves. Aside from Deepest Fathoms, we have another Argonian named Watches the Roots, and two Nord mercenaries called Drennan and Breya respectively. It is unknown what the relationship between the two skilled companions was. Were they siblings, friends, lovers, or simply associates whose interests coincided? We may never find out, although it is clear they knew one another beforehand and hired the Nord mercenaries together. Let us get a glimpse of this curious group.
I don't like this place. It feels like we're being watched.
It's a simple job, Drennan. We get in, we steal the lexicon, we leave. Don't get jumpy.
If you two cannot handle this, we can find others to hire.
Enough. Their services will be more than adequate. Let us continue.
This place is unbelievable.
Indeed. Avanchen Zel is as much a library as it is a city, built to hold the vast memories of the Dwemer.
Why are all these metal things ignoring us?
Avanchen Zel is waiting.
Waiting for what?
No one seems to know. Perhaps the return of the Dwemer. Perhaps the end of the world.
Best get rid of the ones we see, just in case. I told you, we should have hired a thief.
We are thieves, you fool. We're stealing the cube.
And yet none of us can pick a damned lock.
This place is huge.
It is large indeed. I did not anticipate Avanchen Zel's size or the time needed to uncover the entrance. A few hours sleep and we should be ready to continue through.
Maybe we should turn back. I don't want to sleep here.
Drennan, you do understand that the lexicon at the bottom of this place holds the accumulated memories of centuries of Dwemer.
Not to mention our pay.
So?
So we're not turning back, you fool.
Besides, you're not scared of a few sleeping metal men, are you, Drennan? I thought you said these things were sleeping.
You You said they were sleeping. I said they were waiting. It seems a few of them were waiting for someone to try and take the lexicon.
Great.
I can't do this. We shouldn't be here. I'm sorry.
Drennan!
Let the field mouse run. Your pay will be double.
My pay will be nothing if we die in here.
Calm yourself, Breya. We are closing in on the lexicon. I can feel it calling. We'll continue without Drennan.
Fear may be a savior in certain situations, but panic is the worst possible advisor one can listen to, as poor Drennan here proves. In his case to leave Avanchanzel, the young man found an untimely end in the Eternal City's animalculture, extremely close to where the rest of the group was. Upon closer examination of the scene, it appears as if he tripped and fell, likely cracking his head in the process. There are no Dwemer automatons nearby, first of all, and secondly, no traps can be found in this particular premise. The other possibility, given the rubble of stones near him, is that a rockslide occurred at the worst possible moment for poor Drennan. No matter the reason for his death, the young Nord's fate is an example of keeping one's fears in check enough to be observant and rational in a situation, as opposed to succumb to panic.
We are close now. Can you hear the lexicon calling out?
Sure.
So we grab it and we get out, right?
Once we have the lexicon, we'll need to take it to its podium. I know what to do from there. Soon the lexicon's knowledge will be mine.
Ours. Soon the lexicon's knowledge will be ours.
Of course. We're almost there. I can hear the lexicon. Come on, quickly.
Something doesn't feel right. Wait!
The next corpse we find is that of Watches the Roots. He perished in Avanchanzel's boilery, so close to the lexicon he so desperately desired to get his hands on. It appears that in his case to acquire the ancient knowledge of the Deep Elves, he carelessly activated the trap triggers near the entrance and was sliced by the spinning blade that was activated by the pressure plate. Yet another painful lesson of paying attention to one's surroundings.
We can't hold these things. We need to leave.
I did not come all the way here just to walk out empty-handed.
The way out is right there. Run, damn it!
And here we find Brea's corpse. Vasa Bronkendove, a true Nordic warrior, this lady. She managed to take one out of the two Dwemer centurions down before succumbing to the injuries inflicted upon her, all the while allowing from deepest fathoms to make her escape with the lexicon. An honorable death that has no doubt earned her an instantaneous passage to Sovngarde. And so we have two mercenaries who found themselves in this situation for gold, and an Argonian who was thirsty for the knowledge of the ancient Dwemer, more than likely only for himself, judging by the slip of his tongue earlier. And Fathoms, who was all but driven mad by Suliakar Kminda, the power and knowledge of the lexicon. Nonetheless, Avanchanzel is a fascinating and considerably mysterious piece of lost Dwemeri history, and it may be a topic of discussion in the future in my study. I digress. Here comes the other possible explanation behind From Deepest Fathoms appearing as a spectral visage in spite of being alive, aside from one of the other spirits projecting an illusion of her. The lexicon has taken a part of her essence and memories within itself. This device is meant to store memories and information after all, and we carry it with us the entire time. What if the ghosts we see of the rest of the group are not even ghosts in the traditional sense of the word, but recreations crafted by the lexicon itself? This would explain why each member of the group's spectral bodies emit orange hues as opposed to the traditional blue ones. It is also interesting to note that once we return the device to Avanchanzel, From Deepest Fathoms' insanity is cured, and furthermore, she cannot recall her journey to the Eternal City at all, or even giving us the ornate cube, as evidenced in our attempts to speak to her again. as if the lexicon rid her of her memories and stored them within itself. A most intriguing quest and location indeed, and as I stated earlier, a brilliant example of environmental storytelling, alongside Torvald's Cave and Forelhost, and indeed all locations in Skyrim. Nu Zin and Fahad, now an honorable mention we are all intimately familiar with. In the lush village of Ivarstead, resting in the skirts of the Monaven below High Hrothgar, or more specifically the barrow east of the settlement, we will find our seeming ghost. Wilhelm and others have seen the spirit guarding the barrow.
Look, I've seen one of the spirits with my very own eyes. When it glared at me, I swear it burned right through my soul.
As we go to investigate the ancient temple, we will indeed be greeted by a spectre warning us to leave. We of course shall proceed further instead and enter a direct confrontation with the ghost. Only when we vanquish him, it turns out he is no ghost at all, but a Dunmer treasure hunter of flesh and bone named Wendelius Gatharion. Perhaps his journal will shed some light on the situation. Year 200 of the 4th era, 18th of Morning Star. I've set up camp inside the barrow. This has to be the place. According to all of my research, the burial chamber should be located here. All I need is some time undisturbed to find the claw. It must be hidden here somewhere. Year 200 of the 4th era, 25th of Morning Star. Had a close call today with that fool Wilhelm. He came close to entering the barrow, but I was able to scare him off by rattling some pottery shards in a bag. These people are far too superstitious for their own good. Gives me an idea. Year 200 of the 4th era, 28th of Morning Star. After a few failures, I've come up with a mixture that should do the trick. The glow is perfect. I should look exactly like one of the supposed spirits the people of Ivarstead believe is haunting this barrow. Going to test it out tomorrow. Year 200 of the 4th era, 29th of Morning Star. Success! It worked better than I could have imagined. All I had to do was wander about the entrance to the barrow at night and wave my arms about. I had to stop myself from laughing aloud as they ran away. This should keep them at bay while I continue searching for the claw. Year 200 of the 4th era, 11th of Hearthfire. Almost half a year has passed and no sign of the claw or any clues as to its whereabouts. This is becoming maddening. It has to be here. I can't risk hiring any assistance, so I'll have to continue alone. Year 200 of the 4th era, 20th of Sun's Dusk. It isn't here. It can't be here. This isn't right. It must be the people of Ivarstead. They must be onto my ruse and they're toying with me. They want to find the burial chamber on their own and keep the riches for themselves. Year 200 of the 4th era, 18th of Evening Star. Why? Why are they tormenting me? Why not just destroy me? Who am I? My head is becoming clouded. I can't remember anything. I have to read my journal to remember my purpose. Am I a part of this tomb? Am I meant to guard it? What's becoming of me? Year 1050 of the 1st era. They shall not take my treasure. They shall all pay dearly for their crimes. Any who set foot within these walls will taste my wrath, my power. I am the guardian of Shroudhurd Barrow. All who oppose me will fall. And after reading the journal, the situation becomes clear. This Wendelius came to Shroudhurd Barrow seeking its treasure and did not wish to ask for anybody's aid because he had no desire to split the prize. In his ambition to remain undisturbed, he concocted the Filter of the Phantom, a unique potion only found on his body and on the table next to his journal, which makes its drinker appear spectral for 30 seconds. As we read in his diary, this is how he convinced the citizens of Ivarstead of the barrow being haunted, which they already believed in due to superstition, and how he ensured nobody went near it. Except in his paranoia and insistence on working alone, he was eventually driven mad after being unable to recover the sapphire dragon claw required to proceed deeper into the dungeon, and started believing that he was indeed a spirit meant to protect the temple from intruders. The ironic and sad thing is, if he had had the good sense to ask for aid, he would have possibly gotten his hands on the claw, which is kept safe by Wilhelm at Villemere Inn. We now move on to Winterhold and its haunted locations. Let us commence with the ancient Nordic tomb of Ingvild, a ruin that would have been no different from the ghost-free ones we would explore during our travels, if not for one despicable and brain-sick Hjaalmarch. We may uncover this place on our own, but it is also connected to a Thieves' Guild quest given to us by the innkeeper of the Ragged Flagon, Veckel the Man. He will inform us that a client of his is interested in the peculiar, to put it mildly, writings of a high elf named Arundel that we can retrieve from the ruin in question. Regardless, as soon as we enter the Nordic temple, we will be greeted by Draugr guarding its entrance, all of them female. Ghosts of women will also join their undead sisters if they detect their presence. The place is littered with bones buried beneath layers odd ease of snow and ice, as well as open sarcophagi from which the Draugr likely emerged or, in their specific case, were raised. The 4 volumes of Arundel's journal can be found in various premises of the tomb, but we shall only read the last 2 of them, for our focus today are the specters haunting Ingvild, not the one who raised them. I shall only briefly summarize the reason he is here. Arundel, who is originally from Dawnstar, was driven away by the locals after they discovered his necromantic experiments. He found himself in Ingvild and dug out the corpses of Nordic female warriors whom he continued to run tests on, eventually succeeding in raising them as his slaves. Then one day this happened, as quoted by the 3rd volume of his journal, which can be found in an alcove in the passage leading to the ruin's throne room. An intriguing development. Tonight my guards have brought me a trespasser they found near the cave. At first I was understandably upset. Not only was I disturbed during one of my few moments alone with my favorite servant, but I recognized the trespasser as a milkmaid from Dawnstar. She remembered me as well, and made bold claims that I had been lurking near her at all hours. What lies! True, I had taken notice of her on occasion, but she was nowhere near the most noticeable of maidens in town. Her continued accusations, coupled with my fear of more uninvited guests, led me to conclude that she could never return to Dawnstar. My servants were quick to carry out my sentencing. Her body is here next to me as I write this. Funny, her eyes are still so full of life. Perhaps I will try a new experiment tonight using fresher materials. A murderer, a necromancer, and a Such a charming fellow, this Arundel. It is the mystery of the ages why the people of Dawnstar wish to see him gone from their town. If you were not disturbed yet, here is the 4th and final diary of his, which can be found in his own bedroom, where we will find a sleeping ghost. Ugh. The new experiment has proven a success. The milkmaid, whose name still escapes me, was revived as the others, bowing to my commands, with only one interesting development. She has reformed incorporeally, more phantasm than reanimated dead. As her glowing visage stood before me, I found my hand reaching out to touch her. As my fingers passed through her, I felt a sensation unlike any other, as if her essence were invigorating my very soul, connecting with me on a level no woman of flesh and blood could do. This discovery is life-changing. I have ordered my older servants to go out and find any more subjects that may have become lost. With the discovery of the inner sanctum deeper still within Ingvild, I should have sufficient room to store many new materials until I can transform them into willing slaves. I look back on my daydreams whilst living in Dawnstar and wonder if they were in fact portents of times to come. Before we get to the tragic story of these unique disembodied souls, titled Ingvild Ghosts, let us rid Mundus of this disgusting degenerate first. And as satisfying as ending his miserable existence ourselves would be, I personally prefer to subject him to poetic justice. If the Dragonborn successfully sneaks past Arundel and the ghost beside him and removes the soul gem from its pedestal, this will result in the spectral woman to attack him immediately, whatever spell he had cast on her spirit to ensure her pliancy lifted. His terrified calls for her to cease her assault is music to my ears. This newly liberated soul will eventually vanquish her tormentor without any aid from us. We should note, however, that she and the rest of Ingvild's ghosts will remain hostile towards us even after removing the soul gem, so we should not let our guard down. Now that we have this out of the way, let's focus on their mostly obscured stories, or rather the final moments of their lives. There are 7 ghosts in total within the Nordic tomb, all of them female, as established. We are aware that one of them, although we cannot know which for certain, was a milkmaid in Dawnstar who wandered too far away from the town and was captured by Arendel's enslaved Draugr. She was courageous, or foolish, enough to accuse him of his past transgressions and perished by his servants' hands, only to be raised as a phantasmal plaything for him to do with as he wished. The rest of the women, judging by the last entry in his final journal, were more than likely lost or deliberately wandering close to Ingvild, and were unfortunate enough to be captured by Arendel's Draugr. We can find 3 bodies within a locked chamber in the tomb, apparently where he keeps his, or kept his, in his own words, materials. It is unknown if some of the skeletal remains scattered across the place belong to the missing 4. It is clear these poor souls did not serve only as guards to Ingvild nonetheless. Considering the Altmar's writings and the ghost sleeping in his bed, he used them for a much more unsettling ought. Nobody deserves a fate like this, nalas uvdilon, alive or dead. Let us free them from this torture and lay them to rest. The second location in Winterhold where we will find specters is Ysgramor's tomb. Due to there being a group of ghosts as well as an individual disembodied spirit surrounded by ones we cannot see, I consider them separate cases of haunting. Let us commence with the ones we have no detailed backstories for, and namely the companion ghosts inhabiting the temple of the Harbinger of us all. They are all warriors and archers clad in ancient Nordic armor. Similarly to the sanctuary guardians of the Dark Brotherhood's haven in Dawnstar and the Nightingale sentinels within the Twilight Sepulchre, we cannot uncover anything about them, aside from their vocation and loyalties while they were alive. These men and women were once a part of Ysgramor's mythologized 500 companions who aided him in his invasion of Skyrim during the Merethic era. There are some whose names and even fractions of their tales are available to us, such as Adrimk, who was famous for her wisdom and remembered as a war teacher, Grimkel, the powerful sorcerer who eventually betrayed his fellow companions by seeking a hidden entrance to Sovngarde so he could create an afterlife of his own, Jeek of the River, childhood friend of Ysgramor and one of his staunchest shield brothers who discovered the Skyforge, the legendary sisters Grosta and Froa, who created the woeful bowstring for Ysgramor's famous great bow long launcher, etc. However, since the companion ghosts we meet in the tomb are not named, I would assume none of the figures I mentioned were present as we delved into the ancient Nordic building, likely having had separate tombs built in their honor, similarly to Ingol, one of Ysgramor's sons, who will be our focus shortly. Besides, the sorcerer who betrayed the companions likely has no tomb at all, or at least not one that honors him. But I digress. There are 2 possible explanations behind them manifesting on Mundus. The first being that their spirits are bound to protect the tomb of their harbinger in death, likely a decision they made freely. The second is that they normally reside in Sovngarde and only return to the realm of the living if their spirits sense somebody has entered Ysgramor's temple. This is all that can be said about the companion ghosts. Now let us move on to the next disembodied soul we will come across there, and namely that of Kodlak Whitemane, former harbinger of the companions and werewolf member of Jorvaskar's circle. Before we get into why his ghost can be found in Ysgramor's tomb, let us share his tale first, or rather, allow him to tell most of it to us.
Like most of our band, I found this family after losing my own. I traveled the length and breadth of this land, learning all I could of the sword and the axe. I was just a boy, but I had the fire of a man in my heart. Eventually, my body caught up to my spirit. My predecessor, Askar, found me in Hammerfell. I was serving as a bodyguard for some weak-necked lord out there. He brought me back here, and I realized that I was actually coming home. I worked to bring honor to this family, and to the family that I lost. For my mother, my father, and my grandfather. For all my shield siblings. Family and honor. That's what it means to be one of us, girl.
Kodlak will offhandedly inform us he dreams of Sovngarde when we linger around him.
Some nights I dream about the mists of Sovngarde.
At some point before we met the man, he contracted the rot, and we are unaware which variant of the illness, for there are several, but all of them drain the deceased's physical strength, and this is exactly what Kodlak has been experiencing for some time. Due to sensing his time on Mundus was limited, he began worrying over his soul departing for Hircine's hunting grounds instead of for Sovngarde, the afterlife he craved. In the twilight years of his life, the Harbinger preferred to remain behind closed doors and pore over books, searching for a cure for lycanthropy. And he did find it, although by the time we return with the head of a Glenmorrow coven witch, he will have been slain by the Silver Hand. In his journal, Kodlak documented some of his dreams while alive, and it seems they slowly progressed into actual visions. Here is a short excerpt of what is written on its pages. In my dream, I see the line of harbingers start with Ysgramor. Each of them ascends to Sovngarde until we come to Terfik, who first turned us to the ways of the beast. He tries to enter Sovngarde, but before he can even approach Thun, he is set upon by a great wolf who pulls him into the hunting grounds, where Hircine laughs with welcoming arms. Terfik seems regretful, but also eager to join Hircine after a lifetime of service as a beast. Then I see every next harbinger turn away from Sovngarde and enter the hunting grounds of their own accord, until it comes to me, and I see great Thun on the misty horizon, beckoning me. It appears I have a choice, and then at my sight a stranger I had not seen before, with the stranger being us. And now we return to Kodlak's spirit in Ysgramor's tomb. He shares with us that he is not the only ghost of a harbinger present there, but the only one we can see.
Of course, my fellow harbingers and I have been warming ourselves here, trying to evade Hircine. You see only me because your heart knows only me as the companion's leader. I'd wager old Vignar could see half a dozen of my predecessors. And I see them all. The ones in Sovngarde, the ones trapped with me in Hircine's realm. And they all see you. You've brought honor to the name of the companions. We won't soon forget it.
It is then we can throw the Glenmorrow witch's head in the fire and separate his wolf spirit from his soul, slay it, and thus he will be granted passage to Sovngarde. We can even see him there, unable to reach Thun and subsequently the Hall of Valor due to Alduin and his mist. After we defeat Fal-Line Nak, the World Eater, he presumably managed to find his way there, and I say presumably because I did wonder about the hall after sending the Bane of Kings' soul back to Akatosh and could not find Kodlak anywhere. I digress. Let us hope he did eventually get to meet the original Harbinger in the Hall of Valor. The next location we will come face to face with the Shade in Winterhold is the burial place of Ysgramor's son, Ingol. This small Nordic tomb is one of the most intriguing locations in Skyrim for me, specifically because of the blue orbs of light that will circle us and lead us to treasures around the place, tagged as motes in the game files. I speak of them in a lot of length during my previously mentioned research on wisp mothers, wisps, and will-o-wisps, therefore I shall refrain from talking about them in such detail here. I will only give them a brief honorable mention since some braan bovitaan, fellow adventurers, theorize that they are the actual sea ghosts that took Ingol's life and were bound to his tomb for eternity by Ysgramor, and the speculation that they are the spirits of the young band's crew. They also appear to rejuvenate Ingol's phantasmal form, although in the investigation I spoke of moments ago, I share that I believe they may be attached to his helm in particular, but one does not contradict the other after all. Ingol's shade will offer no dialogue, instead he will immediately begin attacking us as soon as he awakens. Once we Quanarok, vanquish him, he will not dissolve into ghostly remains, but rather appear as a spectral corpse before us, emitting dark blue energy. It is unknown why this happens, but there is another ancient spirit that acts similarly upon his second death, without the seemingly magical emanations. We will speak of him in time. As for Ingol's story, he was a genius tactician that won battles before they would even begin, and is believed to have been the best blacksmith the Atmorans had ever had. After the Night of Tears, which I plan to make an in-depth research on in the future, he fled Saarthal with his father and younger brother, Ilgar, and together they returned to Atmora. Under the command of Ysgramor, he and his siblings assembled the best warriors of the land into the 500 companions, or so the tale goes. According to Songs of the Return, the ship he commanded was titled Harak, but the vessel, alongside Ingol himself and his crew, were lost to a terrible storm. Here is the short literary work Ingol and the Sea Ghosts that speaks of this event, written by an unknown author. Macer and Secunda passed over Ysgramor's people as their fellowship landed in longboats upon the rocky shores of Xarek Head, on their journey from Atmora to Merith. Boats littered the coast, but Ysgramor did not count his kin, Ingol, among them. Ysgramor commanded the sea ghosts to surrender his kin, and a great gale darkened the sky. The seas thrashed and churned, and a wrathful storm appeared. Ysgramor took up the oars and rowed into the storm alone. Upon the sea, Ysgramor wrestled the sea ghosts, and the storm carried him along the jagged coast. 2 fortnights passed without relief, until finally the storm broke. Come the next dawn, Ingol's longboat was found in the icy surf, but the vengeful sea ghosts had already taken Ingol and his clansmen. In his terrible grief, Ysgramor slew a dozen beasts and burned them in honor of his fallen kinsman. A barrow hill was dug in the Atmoran tradition, and Ingol was laid to rest with rites and honors among his clansmen, far below the rocky face of Xarek Head, the first of the children of the sky to perish in Tamriel. No matter how much of the story is the writer's imagination and exaggeration regarding Ysgramor's actions, the point is that Ingol and his crew never did reach Skyrim's shores alive. I suspect that this is a possible reason for his soul to have lingered on the realm of Mundus. He perished suddenly and unexpectedly. In case his soul did pass to Aetherius, then it returned to Mundus after being summoned by us entering his burial chamber in the barrow named after him. Perhaps he was called by the enigmatic motes, or he himself chose to come for a brief moment and challenge us. Maybe even to see if we were worthy of wearing his enchanted helmet. Regardless of the truth, this is the tragic story of Ingol, son of Ysgramor. If he had not found any peace before we slayed his spectral form, then I do hope he got to join his kin in Sovngarde after the fact. And now, an honorable mention is in order. Within the magically charged walls of the College of Winterhold, we will find the alteration mage Agniel, who shows great interest in the Dwemer and more specifically, their disappearance. The Breton sorcerer is both extremely dedicated to his research and paranoid of somebody ruining it or stealing it.
Yes. No, I don't think so. Not at this point. It's just that, well, I'm not even really sure it's going to amount to anything just yet. All theoretical right now, you understand. But the implications are quite intriguing, I think. I simply need some experimental results to confirm my suspicions.
He will send us on a quest with 4 parts to uncover secrets of the Deep Elves and bring him various Dwemer objects. Once we have gathered all the materials he needs, Agniel will finally share his project with us.
I apologize if I have not been clear about my work. I didn't want to discuss it for fear this moment might never come. Everyone knows the dwarves disappeared. No one knows why. This little experiment is a first step in recreating the events of their disappearance in an effort to unravel that mystery. Lacking the heart of a dead god, I'm substituting the crystal you helped craft in its place. I also lack Sunder, the counterpart to the dagger keening. I am reasonably confident, however, that this will still work. I certainly don't expect it to have quite the same results. I'm no tonal architect, of course.
For this purpose, he used the various artifacts we acquired for him to create a replica of the Hearth of Lorkhan and had the blade keening, one of Kagranak's tools, delivered from the college in Morrowind. The courier will unfortunately have died on his way to Winterhold, and we will be sent to bring the legendary blade to the one who asked for it. It seems that Agniel's endeavor, pun intended, proved to be more successful than even he could have imagined, for after he strikes what he used as a substitute for the heart, he vanishes without a trace. Nonetheless, once this happens, we will be able to summon his shade to aid us in battle. Agniel's spectre will not speak to us at all. It is interesting to note, however, that unlike his living body, his ghost will be extremely capable in destruction and one-handed, while his abilities in conjuration, restoration, and alteration will diminish greatly. This appears to be an effect of his experiment, but sadly there is not enough information in order to draw concrete conclusions. This is all that is known of Agniel. Let us hope he joined the Dwemer, wherever they are, and that they are more welcoming to him than they were to the Falmer. Nu musivun marco arolsedova. Now we find ourselves in Whiterun Hold, called the Hill of the Dragons in Dovazul. There are 3 examples of hauntings to be investigated here, 4 if we look at 2 ghosts separately, although they are connected to one another. We begin with Ranvik's Fast, a small Nordic ruin northeast of Rorikstead. As soon as we approach the ancient structure, we will be attacked by ghosts that are very vocal on how they do not wish to do us harm, but are forced to and will apologize to us.
I don't have any choice. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This isn't what I want.
They are all enslaved spirits of bandits, 3 of whom evidently even set up a camp outside of Ranvik's Fast, and 1 of an adventurer. All of the outlaws' disembodied souls are titled as subjugated, and their dialogue makes this adjective very appropriate. Unique specters sharing a terrible fate, at least until we arrive to lay them to rest. As we enter the ruin, we will find more of them inside, alongside a word wall and the Nordic chest in the main chamber. We will also notice a trapdoor right before the steps leading to the treasure and Fal Rotmulag, the word of power, which will be one from Kindspi's shout. The locations of words of power and word wall inscriptions are radiant, although specific stone structures are related to specific shouts. I cover this in detail in my investigation on these considerably mysterious cairns scattered around Skyrim. I digress. If we avoid stepping on the trapdoor, we are quickly going to realize that the chest is empty. It was left there to bait ones who wandered into the ruin, and as evidenced by the enslaved spirits that attack us against their will, many fell for the trap. In order to uncover who has come up with such a vile scheme and why, provided we did not fall through the door, we will have to go down the corridor left of the word wall, climb the stairs to the right, activate a lever in a dilapidated room, and gain access to the hole leading underground. Once we lay yet another ghost to rest, we will witness the next poor treasure hunter and/or bandit meet his fate, as he falls through the trapdoor and to his death in an expertly locked cage.
Well, that's disappointing. This one didn't survive the fall either. No matter.
Another one will be along any time now.
Here we will also uncover our culprit, Slid the Warlock. Another day, another psychopathic necromancer. His journal sheds a lot of light on his sadistic nature, and the experiments he carries out are, beyond doubt, as inhumane as they get. The fact that he hopes his victims survive their fall only so he could be able to torture them says enough. If we ourselves fall for his trap, this is his reaction.
Oh, yes. Yes! You've fallen for my trap! Greed makes a great lure. Odd you didn't die from the fall, though. Most do. Oh, and don't mind my assistant here. He may have seen better days, but he's still more help to me dead than he was alive. All right, let's see if we have something here to end this as quickly as possible.
And in case you need it more convincing to vanquish him, in the premise where Slid is located, we will come across more cages, some occupied by deceased individuals, and even a poor dog. That's it. It's time to send Slid to join Arundel in the Dream Sleeve, or probably Oblivion. Regardless, this is the tragic story of the subjugated bandits and adventurer in Rangvik's Fast. I suspect the twisted bastard let the ghosts keep their sentience, only so that they could agonize over their unwilling actions. While we cannot uncover what their lives were like before they chose to delve into the ancient Nordic ruin, we can at least leave the place knowing we have brought these tortured souls some peace and rid the world of someone who will certainly not be missed. Now we move on to a fan favorite, one-of-a-kind spirit on whose past and state we will share some theories and an Easter egg. I am of course speaking of the famous Headless Horseman. He is the only disembodied soul in Skyrim who misses a part of his body, and the only one accompanied by a furry companion, in this case his horse. There are animal specters in Labyrinthian with seemingly no special connection to a ghost, but more on them later. This mysterious spirit will roam around Kai Zal only at night, and begin his ride anytime between 10 p.m. and 5:30 a.m. Nonetheless, his journey always ends at Hamvir's Rest, a small outdoor Nordic ruin and graveyard located to the northwest of the city of Whiterun. If we come across him, we can follow him, although he is rather difficult to keep up with unless we are also riding our own steed or mare. This particular disembodied soul has mystified all of us Dragonborn for years, and as many ought in Skyrim, theories regarding who he was while alive have emerged. Before we go over them, I wish to mention that the Headless Horseman is, before anything, an Easter egg. He is a reference to the eponymous character from the 1820s short story titled The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. Numerous film adaptations as well as a series have been inspired by and based on this timeless tale. But we shall not delve into it, as it is not our focus and its own Headless Horseman has very little in common with ours, save for his appearance and reference to the former. Let us briefly go over popular theories on who Skyrim's decapitated spectre was meant to be while he still drew breath. The most beloved one is that the Headless Horseman is no other than Ragnar the Red, the main character in an eponymous old folk song we so often dance and clap to in taverns.
Oh, there once was a hero named Ragnar the Red who came riding to Whiterun from old Rorikstead. And the braggart did swagger and brandish his blade as he told of bold battles and gold he had made. But then he went quiet, did Ragnar the Red, when he met the shield maiden Matilda, who said, "Oh, you talk and you lie and you drink all our mead. Now I think it's high time that you lie down and bleed." And so then came clashing and slashing of steel as the brave lass Matilda charged in full of zeal. And the braggart named Ragnar was boastful no more when his ugly red head rolled around on the floor.
Due to the Headless Horseman riding a horse, as suggested by his moniker, and Ragnar doing the same in the song, alongside the fact that the latter gets his head lopped off by Matilda, many Dovahkiinnes suspect they are one and the same. And it is plausible, After all, environmental storytelling and small details are one of the odd the Elder Scrolls succeed in the most. Nonetheless, many opposed to the truthfulness of this speculation claim that numerous people in Skyrim get decapitated, so this argument is not strong enough for the spectre to be Ragnar the Red. Others add to this, saying that it is unknown if the eponymous song is even based around a true story. The other theory is that he is the spirit of Hamvir, and this is supported by Hamvir's rest being his final destination. This small outdoors tomb could very well be his and thus have been named after him. And if his comrades and/or friends are the ones buried there beside him, it makes sense for him to visit the site. As for why he is so restless and has not passed to the other side, if his missing head is any indication, then he perished before he could finish the task he had set out on before meeting an untimely end. Or if he is Hamvir, Ragnar, or an unnamed soldier, unsuccessfully laid to rest in this small graveyard, perhaps he blames himself for the deaths of those buried there. What if a battle once occurred here where he and his brothers and sisters perished? Judging by the small size of the tomb, they were not many in number. They could have been ambushed and unable to hold their attackers and ultimate killers off. If the Headless Horseman feels guilt over their deaths, for one reason or another, maybe this is why he cannot pass to the other side. Or if he is Ragnar the Red, maybe before getting beheaded by Matilda, as the song goes, he was headed to meet his friend Hamvir or visit his grave, and since he never managed to do so while alive, he does it in death, forever considering this an unfinished business. Or he is in a similar state to that of the snow elven prelates in the Forgotten Vale. But I believe I have spiraled for long enough already. The Headless Horseman is not our sole focus today, and so we shall move on. Regardless of his story, it is a shame we cannot help him pass to Aetherius or oblivion at last. But we can aid the next two specters we will turn our attention to. In order to be able to see them, we will first need to head to the Temple of Mara in Riften and speak to Dinya Balu. Once we ask for the Goddess of Love's blessing, her priestess will send us to 8 lovers, young and seasoned alike, to begin their romantic journeys. But it is the last couple we will be asked to help that interests us. Here is what Dinya says about them.
There is one final aspect we wish for you to explore. For a strong love can withstand storms and even survive death. Take this symbol of Mara. She will guide you to the wandering souls of two whose love was so great that their entwinement binds them to this world.
It appears that donning the amulet of Mara is instrumental in being able to see these specters, for it is made clear they have been roaming the tundra of Whiterun and more specifically Gjukag's monument and the plains northwest of Fort Greymore for hundreds of years. We will first go and meet Druki, a Nord warrior despite her attire being that of a farmer, who is looking for her husband at the place where Gjukag's forces fell in battle. What are you doing?
I'm searching for my Fenric. He was marching with Yukos men, who they say were wiped out here. I've turned over everybody though, and I can't find him. Please help me look. He has a bright red beard and hair.
The last battle here was hundreds of years ago.
Are you a fool? Look at the bodies around you. Even if you're blind, surely you can smell the blood. Come, help me search for Fenric. He must be here somewhere.
She does not realize that she is no longer among the living. Guki's spirit views the past as if it is present, able to see the bodies of the fallen soldiers and smell Nist's souls, their spilled blood. A situation similar to Auriel's priest in the Vale. The reason this lady is unable to find her husband among the deceased is that he did not perish there. Instead, Fenric met his end in the camp he and his men had set up northwest of Fort Greymore. And this is where we will find his disembodied soul. Similarly to his wife, he still lives in the past, when his physical body ceased to function entirely, the day before the battle where Gjukar and his men were slain. Your wife is looking for you.
Rookie? Where is she?
West, in the plains over the mountain.
We're expected to fight there tomorrow. Gjukar elected to camp here for the night. I don't like it, though.
Why don't you like camping here?
Our fires are visible for miles. We're in a low valley. Sitting ducks.
Let me take you to Rookie.
If she's come this far from home, it must be important. Lead on. I just need to report back to camp by sunrise.
Once we agree to take him to his wife, we will witness a heartfelt moment between the spouses, as well as their passage to Aetherius.
Fenric, you're alive.
Of course I am. What brings you here?
I had heard that Gjukar's men were wiped out. I came to find you.
But that battle isn't expected until tomorrow. Rookie, what's going on?
I am so confused. What's happening?
It doesn't matter. I'm here. We're together now. And we will be forever.
Even if we cannot know what their lives were like before Fenric was killed and Rookie went to search for him, we did catch a glimpse of the former's last moments through his dialogue. He and his comrades were likely caught unprepared by an ambush, especially considering what he says, that the fire they had lit is easily seen even from afar. As for Rookie, it is plausible to assume she perished while searching for her husband's body. What she says indicates she went at the site very shortly after the battle took place, with the scent of blood still being fresh to her. Perhaps some of the enemy forces lingered near the battlefield to ensure all of Gjukar's men, including him himself, were disposed of, and killed Rookie on sight as she approached or shortly afterwards. Or maybe she did die away from it all, never ceasing to wait for her husband to return, given the clothing she wears. However, considering where she lingers and the time period her spirit is confined to, I believe she likely perished close to the monument or right at it while looking for her husband's body. She seemingly never even understood what happened. It appears husband and wife both were slain without even realizing it if we take their behavior into consideration. No matter what happened hundreds of years ago, what is important is that these soulmates are together once more, for death itself could not do them part. Nu muboa Falkreath. Now we go to the Reach. We will commence with a short yet no less interesting encounter with a ghost at the breathtaking Lost Valley Redoubt. In order to see him, we must ascend the remnants of an ancient Nordic ruin, on whose edge we will find a wooden plank. This is Bard's Leap Summit, a place for adventurous bards to recite poetry and perform songs before testing their luck with the leap to the artificial pool below. If we choose to follow in their footsteps and survive the dive, once we emerge from the crystalline waters and climb the steps, we will be greeted by the ghost of Azadal, a Redguard bard playing his spectral lute. As we approach, he will say,
"Been a long time since someone took the leap. Longer still, since any survived it. I once performed the entirety of the Poetic Edda from atop Bard's Leap before trying my luck. Well, you can see how that turned out."
After which he shall linger for a moment longer and gift us with some of his knowledge of speechcraft before vanishing for good. As with most disembodied spirits we have discussed today, we cannot uncover details of his life before his final moments on Mundus, aside from his vocation and race. But unlike many of the ghosts we have come across today, we do learn his name. As per Azadal's words, he did not survive his leap of faith, and he is not the only one who had perished attempting this feat. We can find scattered remains in the small pool, although whether they or at least one of the skeletal parts belongs to Azadal or other unfortunate divers is impossible to tell. The Redguard nonetheless appears to be very self-aware and in complete peace with his death. It does make me wonder if he is an example of a spirit that has successfully passed to the far shores, the Redguard afterlife of Aetherius, and only briefly returns to Mundus in the rare cases when somebody survives the leap, or if his soul does linger at the place of his death and only conjures up the energy to become visible in such special cases. Or if he was waiting to see somebody achieve what he could not, and proceeds to the afterlife once he witnesses us succeed where he and many others had previously failed. He does tell us himself that it has been a while since somebody survived the dive after all. Whatever the case is, our first meeting with him is also our last, for Azadal will never appear before us again, no matter how many times we jump off the platform and survive the dive after. I do hope the music he adores never ceases to play, and that his favorite poems are forever recited, wherever he may stay. Our next destination in the Reach is the ancient Old Hrolden Inn. Once we enter the warm and comfortable establishment, rich with the scent of seasoned meats and fresh vegetables, we will go and speak to the innkeeper, Idis, who will proudly share a piece of history with us.
In the Second Era, Tiber Septim himself led the army that conquered Old Hrolden from the barbarians of the Reach. Septim would later found the empire that united Tamriel, but his first known battle and victory was right here. And this inn has the very bed the great general slept in on his first night as Old Hrolden's liberator, as good as it was hundreds of years ago.
And how can we pass up an opportunity to stay in the same room the mighty Knight the Divine had once slept in? After a hot bath and a good meal, let us lay down and rest our eyes. We will be shocked out of bed by a terrified scream. After we go and speak to Idis, we will find out that she got startled by the sudden appearance of a ghost inside her inn.
Mara have mercy, that gave me a fright.
I heard screaming.
There's a ghost just wandering around my inn like it owned the place.
You said you saw a ghost?
Yes. I've heard stories that Old Hrolden was haunted, but no one's seen a ghost here since the Great War. He's from the battle, I just know it. He's one of Tiber Septim's soldiers, back from the dead.
As we approach the mysterious spectre, only known to us as the ghost of Old Hrolden, he will immediately greet us and refer to us as Hjalti.
Hjalti? Is that you? I've been waiting.
Hjalti? Who are you talking about?
You promised me, Hjalti. You promised that when we sacked Hrolden, you would make me your sworn brother. And I've waited. Even after the enemy's arrows dug into my chest and their hammers crushed my bones, I've waited. Give me your sword, Hjalti, that we may become brothers, as you promised.
I'll find your sword.
I long to taste battle again.
Who are you? Where are you from?
You don't remember me, Hjalti? 2 campaigns we served together. You saved my life time and time again.
Afterwards, we will need to speak to Idis again, and she will direct us to the sword's possible location, going off famous battles Tiber Septim led in the area. The ghost mentioned a Hjalti.
Hjalti? I never heard of anyone named Hjalti. Tiber Septim had many names. Maybe that's one of them.
The ghost is looking for his sword.
A sword? I remember a legend that Tiber Septim had attacked one of the enemy camps before he came to Old Hrolden. It could be there. I'll mark it down on your map.
The place of interest is Radiant. For me, Hjalti's sword spawned in the lush and abundant Forsworn camp in Druadak Redoubt, whose inhabitants will be welcoming if we had sided with the Forsworn during the quest No One Escapes Sidna Mine. After we recover the sword, we can finally return it to the ghost of old Hroden and subsequently lay his spirit to rest.
I've been waiting for you, Hjalti.
I have Hjalti's sword.
It's been an honor to serve you, brother. Remember our lessons from the sword masters of Alcair? Let me show you a few things you may have forgotten before we leave Hroden.
The spectral soldier will relay some of his combat knowledge and depart to, I would assume, Sovngarde. And so this is what is known of the story of the ghost of old Hroden. One question many Dovahkiin have asked throughout the years is who Hjalti is meant to be, and many have reached the consensus that it is one of Tiber Septim's many names, due to evidence presented through dialogue during the very quest we just covered and the book The Arcturian Heresy by the Underking, Ysmir Kingmaker, where it is said that Hjalti Earlybeard, who was born in High Rock, is given the moniker of Tiber Septim later on. Furthermore, the ghost appears and refers to us specifically as Hjalti after we have spent the night in Tiber Septim's original room. While many before us have rested their eyes there as well, we possess Sil Dodova, the soul of a dragon, much like Stormcrown, as is Talos' name's translation from Elnofex to Tamrielic, and spirits are very sensitive to such odd. Regardless, much like everything else in the lore written within the Elder Scrolls, we may interpret the information we have at our disposal as we ourselves wish to. What is certain is that we have helped an ancient ghost find rest at last, and we may continue knowing our actions have brought peace to a restless soul. We now turn our attention to a very special ghost, one who aids us in an incredibly enjoyable and rewarding quest. I am speaking of Catria, a Nord scholar and archer whom we encountered the first time we entered the Dwemer and Agntans. As we enter, we will first only hear her disembodied voice, trying to warn us to turn back, lest we meet her fate and the destiny of many others who ventured into the deep elven city.
Turn back.
Once she sees we have no intention to do as she warns, Catria will finally manifest before us with an exasperated sigh and initiate conversation. Instead of retelling her story myself, I will let her say it to us instead.
What are you still doing here? Let me guess. You're here for the treasure, aren't you? Just like all the others.
Who are you?
The name's Catria. was an adventurer. Raided ruins like this for nigh on 20 years. I was on the trail of something big. It led me here, and I didn't make it.
Telling Catria her name sounds familiar will be an option if we have read the book The Aetherium Wars, to which she will respond with,
Oh, you read the book, didn't you? The Aetherium Wars. That was my theory, you know. My research, my life's work, all of it, lost. Stolen by my own damn apprentice. That's how I ended up here. I can't rest. Not until I find the forge. Until I can prove that it was my discovery. Mine, not his. But it's hopeless. I died here, just like all the others. Turn back. Turn back before you become the next victim.
I can handle myself.
Sure, that's what they all say. I'm not going to talk you out of it, am I? I know. I was just like you once. Well, if you want to reach the summit, you're going to need some help. You want a hand?
Sure.
All right, lead on then.
Now we can ask her 3 questions, 2 of which we will raise. What happened to this place?
It wasn't always like this. Best preserved dwarven city I'd ever laid eyes on. And then the earthquake hit. Now, you'd be lucky to find a single room intact.
How did you die?
I fell. When the earthquake hit, the ground just opened up. Even so, I almost made it. Another foot or two to the side and the water would have broken my fall, but nothing I could do.
Then as we proceed through the ruin with Katria at our side, we will uncover her unique Dwemer bow Zephyr, balancing unsteadily near the tip of a fallen tree.
Take good care of it for me.
We will eventually uncover the tonal lock, and then our spectral companion will share another detail regarding her death.
You know what this is? It's a lock. A tonal lock. Simple and very, very deadly. See the resonators up there? Strike them in the right order, and the doors should open. Get it wrong and, well, you've seen what happened when I tried it.
You mean the earthquake?
Yeah, I thought I was prepared for anything. How can you prepare for a damned earthquake? And that was just one trap. Look around. Who knows what else this thing is capable of?
I will not go over the rest of the quest in detail, for our focus today is Katria, not lost to the ages. She will vanish and leave us after we collect the Aetherium shard in Argentans, and will appear at the location of each of the other 3 segments in Ralbathar, Mazalt, and the Deep Folk Crossing. Once we have the key put back together, we will proceed to the well-hidden ruins of Bethalft, where the Aetherium Forge is located. After we defeat the various automatons there, including the Forge Master, we will have another brief conversation with an excited Katria before and after crafting something from the key with the materials available to us there.
I almost can't believe it. We did it. We actually did it. There's only one thing left to do. We have to prove this actually works, that this is the real Aetherium Forge.
How do we do that?
By forging something, of course. Go ahead. After everything you've done, you should do the honors. Beautiful. That crown. It's everything I could have hoped for. And with that, it's done. No one could possibly deny what we found now.
What now?
For me, I've done what I set out to do. But you, take that out into the world, and if anyone asks, tell them what we discovered together.
Congratulations, and thanks, Katria.
I've waited so long for this moment. We found it, at last. Now, I think I can rest. Farewell, my friend, wherever your travels take you.
And ultimately, this is the story of Katria. We learn more of her spirit than most, including details of her vocation, and namely studying the history of the Dwemer and seeking the legendary Aetherium Forge, Taron Dread's plagiarism of her life's magnum opus, why and how she met her end, and like many specters in Skyrim, we can help lay her soul to rest with extra effort and while being accompanied by her for most of our journey, unlike most ghosts in Skyrim. And speaking of her treacherous Dunmer apprentice, we will have the opportunity to deliver more straightforward justice to him. After we have discovered the forge and used it to create one of the 3 possible artifacts, if we have whichever one we choose to craft equipped, we will meet Dreth roaming the roads of Skyrim, accompanied by mercenaries in a random encounter. Upon seeing the Aetherium piece, he will immediately ask us about it.
Your crown, gods, it's made of Aetherium, pure Aetherium. Where did you find it? Tell me.
Who are you?
Taron Dreth, the world's foremost expert on Dwemer forging techniques. Now, answer my question.
I've heard about you. From Katria.
Katria? No, that's not possible. You know too much. I can't afford to let you live. Guards! Kill her!
No matter what we choose to tell him, all options will eventually lead to him attacking the Dragonborn. And by Talos, does he look a little too fired up? Let us cool him down. And so ends the life of the world's foremost expert in Dwemer metallurgy and forging techniques, who is nothing more than a thief and a fraud. An inglorious end for an inglorious individual. It feels good to know that after all, it is Catria who has the last laugh. Now we move on to a forbidden legend, whose pieces are spread around several different holds, but its culmination and the disembodied spirits of its main personages can be found in the Reach. I am speaking of the specters of Archmage Galdr and his sons, Jirik, Mikrul, and Sigdis. Here we return to Talsgar the Elder's work, Lost Legends, where he writes the following. But some tales prove far harder to analyze. Among scholars, perhaps the best known is the forbidden legend of the Archmage Galdr. In the dawning days of the First Era, the story goes, there lived a powerful wizard by the name of Galdr. Wise and just, he was well known in the courts of King Harald and the Jarls of Skyrim, and his aid and counsel were sought by man and mer alike. And then he was murdered. Some say one of his sons killed him, others that King Harald, jealous of his power, gave the order. But Galdr's 3 sons fled into the night, pursued by a company of Harald's best warriors and the Lord Geirmund, the king's personal battle mage. A great chase ensued, from the wilds of the Reach to the glacial north. One brother is said to have perished in the ruins of Folgunthur at the foot of Solitude. The others were run to ground soon thereafter. And once it was done, King Harald ordered every record of their murders destroyed, and Galdr's name and deeds were struck from the rolls of history. Even today few sources remain, and no bard will tell the tale. But perhaps the truth yet remains in some ancient ruin waiting to be unearthed, for nothing is ever truly forgotten. The notes of a researcher named Danis Velen in many ways retell the legend in the same manner, with the difference that, according to him, it was Galdr's sons, and more specifically Jirik, the eldest, that ended his life while he slept, due to envy of his power, and then proceeded to wreak havoc and sow chaos across the land of Skyrim with his brothers, until King Harald sent his battle mage Geirmund and a group of wizards to stop them. The journal also mentions the Manmer mage's enchanted amulet, believed to be the source of much of his might, and where one may uncover its 3 pieces and put them back together. The Bretons were referred to as Manmer during the First Era due to possessing more elven features back then. Valen's research proves fruitful, as we can indeed find the fragments in Galdr's sons in Folgunthur, Sarthal, and Geirmund's Hall respectively, and then be led to Reachwater Rock in the Reach, where we will see the specters of all family members. Once we vanquish the vengeful spirits of Jirik, Mikrul, and Sigdis, Galdr himself will emerge and put the amulet back together, as if indirectly urging us to wear it proudly as he once had. And this is the story of the 4 ghosts. I do believe that the Manmer's sons killing him is more accurate than King Harald himself giving the order out of jealousy, if what we ourselves experience as we set out to bring this forbidden and forgotten legend back to the light is any indication. The writs of sealing found on the bodies of all 3 sons also hinted this being the case. All of them read as follows, with the name changing depending on which brother's Draugr form we have defeated. Be bound here, Mikrul, Sigdis, or Jirik, murderer, betrayer, condemned by your crimes against realm and lord. May your name and your deeds be forgotten forever, and the charm which you bear be sealed by our ward. I believe we have brought Galdr peace by vanquishing his patricidal children and putting his prized amulet back together, and as for the 3 sons, something tells me they will not be able to rest for a very, very long time. Un Ahmin mora now Lok Thu'um. Now our attention is focused on Lok Thu'um and the benevolent ghost who resides within, as well as another spectral figure we will catch a glimpse of. The ancient Nordic ruin was once a dragon priest monastery led by Fal Sonag, the priest Hevnorak, as we will find out immediately after entering, for Valdr's spirit will approach us before we can even blink. Similarly to Catria, we will let this disembodied soul tell us of his story himself.
Leave, stranger. Evil stirs in this place. I fear for the security of the very land if it should break free.
What evil do you mean?
We stand at the tomb of Hjaalmarch, who has been dead for many generations. I fear, however, that his return may be at hand.
There must be a way to stop this.
I have been holding him here. While he regains strength, however, I am fading. By now, I can barely contain his power, much less defeat him if he awakens. But with the help of a living champion, I may be able to succeed.
Then I will help you. What must be done?
You would do this? 3 vessels in the tomb below hold the power to vanquish Hjaalmarch. Before anything else, we need those. Bring them to me. But be careful, mortal. They are guarded by Hjaalmarch's minions. They will stop at nothing to see their master return.
Why are you here?
Just to suffer. Hjaalmarch planned his resurrection obsessively before dying. My duty in life and in death is to make sure he stays in this tomb for eternity.
We shall leave the other options where they do not disclose information of Valdar whom we are interested in. Once we follow his instructions and collect the 3 vessels scattered around Lok Thu'um, we will return to the main chamber where our spectral ally will be waiting for us. Then, with our help, he will perform the ritual to unseal Hjaalmarch in a weakened state, which will leave Valdar's soul itself frailer, and it will be up to us to vanquish the Dragon Priest. When he is dead for good, at last, we shall speak to the ghost once more.
Thank you, hero. Now, I may finally rest. Take Hjaalmarch's iron mask. It may be of use to you, and serve as some reward for your feat here.
And this is the known part of Valdar's story. The ancient Nordic hero was tasked with guarding Hjaalmarch's undead and sealed form while alive, and continued to do so in death. With our arrival and aid, as per his own words, he may finally depart to Sovngarde or whichever afterlife he may have favored, and rest as he deserves. I did mention another ghostly figure we may catch a glimpse of twice whilst in Lok Thu'um, and it is a considerably mysterious one. It is the spectre of an unmasked dragon priest who seemingly leads us to treasure chests with nothing of special significance within them. As far as I am concerned, there are 2 possible identities of this Sonak. The first is that this is either a fragment or manifestation of the soul of, or a memory of Hjaalmarch himself. His presence is strong in Lok Thu'um, even as he is asleep and sealed. Additionally, spectral visages of an individual may appear in specific locations said individual associates with strong emotions. There are cases of a soul splintering because of powerful feelings. Since this dragon priest we see does not lead us to the vessels, but rather to treasure chests, if it is Hjaalmarch we see indeed, then perhaps we are catching a glimpse of him going to retrieve his staff and mask before being buried. After all, the spectre is bare-faced and does not carry a weapon around either. In case we are seeing Hjaalmarch, let us share what is known of his story. His name translates to brutality from Dovazul, and here is what Valdar says about him on 2 different occasions.
He had a way of enthralling people, and built up a loyal army of followers. Good men fell under his spell, and were forever twisted, made evil. After that, fear was enough to keep them in line. He could torture and humiliate them, and they would not rebel. Even in death, they they serve him still. In life, Hjaalmarch drained his own blood from his body. His goal was to transfer his power back into himself after death, becoming a powerful lich.
We can uncover large torture chambers within the temple, adding to what the ancient Nordic hero says about Hjaalmarch, that he would torture his subjects on a whim and they would still remain loyal to him, as per his own words, mostly due to fear. Ultimately, that is all of the information of Hjaalmarch we have at our disposal. It is also possible that the Spectre is another dragon priest, one of lower rank who lived in Lok Thu'um alongside Hjaalmarch. Although, given what we know of the latter, I doubt he would have suffered any form of potential competition. Regardless of whose ghost this is, it can be quite disarming to see him floating about Lok Thu'um after being given a task by another Spectre. Ultimately, these are the alleged, in the case of Sonaki Gaf, the priest's ghost, stories of the specters of Lok Thu'um. And finally, we reach the last hold of Skyrim and its own cases of hauntings, the lowland inshore Hjaalmarch. Its beautiful and enigmatic marshes have spawned many stories of wandering spirits, some with a sliver of truth to them, and others being purely the fruits of the locals' imagination and superstition. We will commence with a disembodied soul that we shall first see and speak to in the capital city of the Hold, Morthal itself, the ghost of a little girl named Helgi. She was the daughter of Hrogar, whom the citizens suspect had something to do with the fire that killed her and her mother, because he moved in with Alva shortly after his old home and family burned down. As we set out to investigate the case after speaking to the Jarl, once we enter the debris of the building, we will be greeted by the specter of a child. Here is what Helgi herself will tell us.
Who's there? Is that you, Father?
Who are you?
Helgi, but Father says I'm not supposed to talk to strangers. Are you a stranger?
Is Hrogar your father?
You know him? He made my favorite dolly, but I can't find her. Are you sure you aren't a stranger?
No, I'm a friend. Do you know what happened to your house?
The smoke woke me up. I was hot and I was scared, so I hid. Then it got cold and dark. I'm not scared anymore. But I'm lonely. Will you play with me?
If I do, will you tell me who set the fire?
Okay, let's play hide and seek. You find me, and I'll tell you. We have to wait for nighttime, though. The other one is playing too, and she can't come out until then.
The other one? What do you mean?
I can't tell you. She might hear me. She's so close. If you can find me first, I can tell you.
At face value, it sounds like Helgi perished due to the fire, although her telling us she suddenly felt cold before being embraced by eternal sleep is quite a hint. As we play hide and seek with the child's spirit, we will encounter the vampire Leylet, whom we will find trying to dig up the little girl's body, which is buried just behind Morthal. Once we dispose of the bloodsucker, Helgi's spirit will speak to us once more, although we will not be able to see her this time around.
You found me! Leylat was trying to find me too, but I'm glad you found me first. Leylat was told to burn Mommy and me, but she didn't want to. She wanted to play with me forever and ever. She kissed me on the neck, and I got so cold that the fire didn't even hurt. Leylat thought she could take me and keep me, but she can't. I'm all burned up. I'm tired. I'm gonna sleep for a while now.
The journal of Alva, who is behind everything alongside the ancient vampire Morvath, will shed even more light on the situation. The excerpts we are interested in read as follows. Hrogar's family is becoming inconvenient. I've told Leylet to kill them all, but make it look like an accident. Hrogar must be seen as innocent if he is going to be my protector. That little fool! Leylet burnt Krogar's family alive. I asked her for an accident and she gave me a scandal. To make matters worse, she tried to turn his little girl, Helgi. Except Leylet couldn't even get that right. She killed the child and left the body to burn. Something is wrong with Leylet. She keeps talking about Helgi. I think her mind has snapped. She seems to think that the child can still be brought back to be her companion. Now we finally have the full picture of how and why the little girl and her mother perished. A terrible tragedy born of ambitious evil creatures of the night. But the brief interaction with Helgi we have at her burial site is not the final one. After we storm Morvath's lair and finally rid the world of the ancient vampire for good, she will manifest one last time near the entrance to thank us for avenging her and her mother.
Mother's calling me. It's time for me to sleep now. I'm so tired. Thank you for making her feel better.
And this is the story of Helgi, whose life was cut way too short. Regardless of the terrible series of events that occurred, leading to her Ach Ekmona, her mother's death, from what we heard, her soul will finally be able to rest alongside her mom's, and I'm certain both will find eternal peace in Aetherius. We now move on to a ghost that is very easily missed due to only spawning once and never again, and that is extremely fascinating and mysterious. I am speaking of the unnamed spectre who manifests in Kenstag ruins between 8 p.m. and 4 a.m. and takes off immediately, barely giving us a moment to follow him. He will lead us to a small tomb not far from his place of emergence, one which has been dug up by a couple of bandits who aim to claim the treasures the departed was buried with for themselves. As soon as the ghost reaches his destination, and as we vanquish the grave robbers, he will simply vanish to never appear again. Unfortunately, there is absolutely no information on this particular disembodied soul. He is unnamed, cannot be interacted with, and will not engage in combat with the bandits once we reach the barrow not far from Kenstag ruins. All we can conclude regarding this ghost is that he lived thousands of years ago, considering his ancient Nordic attire, and that he was likely laid to rest either in the ruins he begins his short one-time journey from, or in the small tomb that is being robbed at the time when we follow him to it. My theory would be that he was resting peacefully in Sovngarde, or whichever afterlife he may have favored, when his soul sensed a disturbance from the realm of Mundus. If we assume he was indeed buried in Kenstag ruins, then perhaps somebody who was close to him during his lifetime can be found in the barrow, hence why he manifested and went to investigate. I would go farther and state that this spirit appeared because he knew we ourselves would be at his graveside, so that he could lead us to deal with the bandits ourselves, especially since he does not even attempt to attack them at all. All of the scarce information we have does suggest that this ghost does not have, or chooses not to, use up his energy to linger on Mundus longer than necessary, and the former would be extremely curious indeed, considering he had been deceased for likely a millennia. As for whether he hoped we ourselves would not loot the barrow he leads us to, or is glad for us to take the level jewelry, shield, and weapon the mummified Draugr is laying there with, we cannot know for certain. Another intriguing detail is that if, for some reason, we choose to attack and kill for the second time this spirit, we will get a full set of ancient Nordic armor of his ghostly remains. He will never fight back. Said remains are in themselves odd, similarly to Ingol's. He drops down to a spectral corpse rather than the usual remnants ghosts leave behind, and there is no ectoplasm for us to collect from him either. An enigmatic encounter that adds so much to the world we know and love. It is little odd like this that makes a big difference. Regardless of this spirit's past and reason to linger on or return to the realm of Mundus, I do hope that once we punish the bandits for disturbing the dead and stealing from the barrow, this ghost will get to, or return to, his rest. Our next location in Hjaalmarch is the burial place of King Olaf One-Eye, and namely Dead Man's Respite. But it is not his spectre we meet there. Instead, as soon as we enter the tomb, we will be greeted by the ghost of a bard named Svaknir, but more on that later, playing his lute. As soon as he sees us, he will gesture for us to follow him, after which he will walk towards a closed gate and vanish. His spirit will appear several more times as we progress through Dead Man's Respite, ensuring we are headed in the correct direction. He is our guide in this Draugr-infested location. As we arrive near the end of the tomb, we will be greeted by Svaknir standing in front of a magically locked door, whose barrier only he can remove. But before that, he urges us to enter the small chamber where he perished, and he waits for us to pick up the last surviving and severely damaged copy of King Olaf's verse, whose author is the bard himself. As soon as we pluck the precious book from Svaknir's long cold and dead hands and return upstairs, he will get rid of the door's barrier, unsheath his spectral weapon, and rush into Olaf's burial chamber, which also serves as a resting place of many who served the king whilst alive. Once we are close enough, the vengeful bard will exclaim,
"Olaf, it is time."
As the Draugr awaken, he will aid us in vanquishing them, fighting side by side with the Dova Keen. After the first wave is defeated, he will once more call for Olaf.
Arise, Olaf. My vengeance is at hand.
One more swarm of foes later, Svaknir will climb the stairs leading to the one-eyed sarcophagus and urge him to arise, which his Draugr form will finally do.
Olaf. Insolent bard, die!
And then, with combined effort, the bard will at last get the vengeance he has desired for numerous centuries. Once all is said and done, Svaknir will retreat to stand before the door leading to Olaf's treasury room and strum on his spectral lute before finally passing to Aetherius for good. Although he shall not find rest in Sovngarde until we defeat Alduin, for his soul can be seen in Shore's realm if we have completed the Bard's College quest, Tending the Flames. Svaknir has no unique dialogue. He only repeats what other lost spirits say, warning us to stay clear of the World Eater and stating he feels disorientated. Olaf One-Eye nonetheless does have something to say to us once we enter the Hall of Valor.
You freed Svaknir. A fool of a poet, but an honest enemy who has earned my respect. Sadly, he's now lost in the soul-snaring mist. Defeat Alduin, and his doom avert. I hope to greet him in this hall as a friend.
It is good to know that any conflict between them, at least as far as the former king is concerned, has permanently remained on Mundus. Now let us go over what else is known of Svaknir's story. The legendary bard lived during the First Era and is known for challenging the truthfulness of Olaf One-Eye capturing the dragon Luminex. He believed that the king was nothing but a tyrant and a fraud and had no qualms about vocalizing his opinions. His courage or foolishness, depending on the viewpoint, resulted in Olaf capturing and imprisoning the bard and destroying every copy of the verse he'd written that he could find. Ancient texts that were either written by Svaknir or inspired by him claim that One-Eye and his men found a weakened Numinex and captured him without much effort. Then he adorned the truth with grandiose lies to make himself out to be a great warrior and hero, so his reputation would aid him in becoming the Jarl of Whiterun and later High King of Skyrim. What the truth is, we may never know for certain, although if finding his soul in Sovngarde is an indication, he was, in the very least, a great warrior. Regardless, Svaknir, who died in captivity, still clutching onto the last known surviving copy of King Olaf's verse, never found rest, for he was consumed with thoughts of revenge against One-Eye. And with our aid, he got what he desired, his spirit finally moving on now that his unfinished business was seen to. And after we defeat Alduin, Svaknir's soul may at last rest in the Hall of Valor, and possibly even share a drink with his mortal nemesis, if he feels as forgiving as Olaf. And after nearly 3 hours, we have finally reached the final haunted location in Hjaalmarch, and thus in Skyrim, the ancient city of Bromjunar, Northern Kingdom, better known to us as Labyrinthian. These particular disembodied souls, or rather projections of their final moments on Mundus, will only appear to us as we set out to collect the Staff of Magnus from the former capital of Skyrim and ruling body of the Dragon Priests. We will also come across spectral Draugr and hounds, as well as ancient Nordic ghosts that usually perish so quickly most never even see them. I digress. As soon as we reach the entrance to the great city, we will first see only the spirit of Sava, former Archmage of the College of Winterhold, who is dead at this point in the story. Then 5 more ghosts will manifest and the following conversation takes place.
Come on, we're finally here. Let's not waste any more time.
Are we truly sure this is a good idea?
We'll be back at the college before anyone even knows we're gone.
You would care about that, since you're the Archmage's favorite.
Don't forget, this whole idea was Atma's to begin with.
Let's just get inside, see what's in there.
Once we enter the ruin, we will be greeted by the dead students at the magical institution, including the Dunmer who was to become the leader of the college at a later stage in his life.
I can't believe we're doing this.
Can you imagine the looks on their faces when we come back?
You keep talking like you're sure we'll find something useful in here.
Given the history of this place, it's more than likely there's still some amount of power here.
Enchanted weapons, tomes of ancient knowledge, Shalador's secrets themselves. Who knows what we could find?
And what if there are things guarding this place?
Against 6 college-trained mages? I think we'll be fine.
Unfortunately, Nist Par, their ambition will soon be clouded by loss and fear after 5 out of 6 barely make it out alive from the chamber where the unique skeletal dragon, alongside other unliving beings, resides.
We have to go back. We can't leave Gerduin.
We barely made it out alive.
What was that thing?
You want to go back in?
It's too late. There isn't enough of him left to go back in after.
Gods, what have we done?
We can't go back. Might as well go forward. We can still do this.
Savos is right. We can make it if we just stay alert.
One of them, Girduin, fell victim to the undead Dova shortly after he entered Labyrinthian with his fellow mages. We cannot uncover any additional details of his life before his untimely demise, except for his name, race, and vocation, and that he perished rather gruesomely, judging by Atma's comment. A tragic end for an aspiring sorcerer. Let us hope that, aside from the memory of him we witnessed, he has found rest. Later on during our journey through Bromjunar, we will observe another spectral projection.
Just another minute, please.
Come on! We can't stop now. We have to keep moving.
Where's Elvery? She was right behind me.
Dead. Something grabbed her from behind. Gone before I could do anything.
This is insanity. We never should have come.
You're right. This is all my fault. Should we turn around, head back?
I don't think going back is a good idea.
Going back would be the end of all of us. We keep pushing forward and we'll make it. We will!
Come on, you can make it. Let's go.
As we hear, the next from the group to find her end was Elvali Veren. According to Haafingar's words, something, likely a Draugr or a skeleton, grabbed her from behind before he could do anything to help her. Similarly to Girduin, we can uncover no details about her aside from her race and namely Dunmer, moniker, and vocation. And just like the Bosmer we briefly touched on, may she have found peace wherever her spirit is. Falkreath, the memory we observed not long ago, is also the last time we see the Argonian takes in Light, who chose not to continue with what remained of their group. Judging by the interaction we witness, it appears she was both too exhausted to carry on and accepting of the inevitable demise that awaited them deeper into Bromjunar, as evidenced by the next conversation we see take place shortly before we reach the ruin's final chamber.
We shouldn't have left her there to die.
What else could we do? Stay there and die with her? She refused to go on. We didn't have a choice.
This is it, you know. Through this door. Can you feel it?
We're not going to make it, are we?
We stay together, no matter what. Agreed?
I'll be right with you.
Agreed. We all stay together.
Takes-in Light remained behind. Just like the previous two mages, there is no additional information on her. May her spirit rest. Therefore, we will continue on to the last premise ahead of us, the one containing a trapped Molokai and the enthralled spirits of Atma and Haafingar Icefist. When we make an attempt to interact with them, they will immediately turn hostile and attack us, forcing our hand and harshly guiding them to their respective afterlives at last. And once we deal with the Dragon Priest and collect the Staff of Magnus from his remains, we will come face to face with the specter of a regretful Savos Aren.
I'm sorry, friends. I'm so sorry. I had no choice. It was the only way to make sure that monster never escaped. I promise you, I'll never let this happen again. I'll seal this whole place away.
As for Haafingar and Atma, when it comes to the former, similarly to the previous three sorcerers we discussed, we can only uncover his name, race, Nord as his moniker suggests, and choice of occupation. Thanks to the projections we observe, we may conclude he was an honorable man who was regretful for being unable to save El Valley and wished for the three remaining mages, himself, Atma, and Savos, to stay together no matter what. As for Atma, we do uncover a little more about this Redguard sorceress compared to the rest of the deceased students. She was apparently the then Archmage's favorite, and it was her idea to go to Labyrinthian and search for Nuzuk Sovenne, arcane secrets within. She expressed remorse and regret over suggesting they press on even after Girduin's death, as we saw earlier, feeling responsible for the predicament she had gotten her fellow mages into. And like her Nordic companion, she was betrayed and enthralled by Savos Aren, who, fearful for his life of the dragon priest they found, bound his two friends to keep Molokai contained. Through our actions, I believe we have finally allowed these two poor souls to depart to Sovngarde and the far shores respectively, provided those were their preferred afterlives. Before we proceed with what is known of the final remaining member of this little group, allow me to briefly go over the unique ghostly entities that we only face in this very location, the spectral Draugr and Hounds of Bromjunar. The former carry unique ethereal weapons, similar in appearance to Fiori and Holgir's gift to us, Ghostblade, and namely, Drain Heart Swords, which absorb 15 points of stamina per hit, Drain Spell Bows that deprive one of 15 points of magicka, and Drain Blood Battle Axes that suck 15 points of health from their opponent. Unfortunately, we cannot uncover any details or reasons behind these undead Nords and animals. One could theorize that they are in the state we find them in thanks to Molokai's powerful magics, perhaps even one stemming from Magnus's staff. This particular priest was also known as the Deathless after all. The other spirits we may briefly catch a glimpse of are ones of ancient Nords who will emerge from the magically sealed doors, just as Molokai sucks us dry of our mana. They normally die really quickly as soon as we cast the appropriate spell on the doors, and similarly to the spectral Draugr and Hounds, there is nothing we can uncover about them. And since the Pale Lady was an honorable mention earlier, I will point out the Wisp Mother that spawns in Bromjunari Gradstad, the Northern Kingdom's graveyard. Once more, there is nothing we can conclude about her, including that she is indeed a ghost. And here we reach the spectre we know most of out of all 6 apprentices, albeit not as much as one would expect, Archmage Savos Aren. After the incident in Labyrinthian, as we heard, he swore to seal the place away forever and expressed great regret and guilt over turning on his 2 remaining friends. And the Dunmer kept his promise regarding Bromjunar. He did take the torque needed to open the entrance to the ruin with him, thus locking away the place. He is over 100 years old when we meet him in the 4th era, having been an apprentice when the Sijic Order pulled their advisor away from the College of Winterhold and their island of Lok Thu'um vanished. This would mean that the events we see projected in Bromjunar took place well over a century ago. Back to Savos. He was a skilled conjurer and became Archmage after the Great Collapse greatly damaged Winterhold in the year 122 of the 4th era, but could not have assumed the position earlier than year 176, for the Dunmer Dennet was still the head of the institution until that time. As leader of the college, Aren was cautious not to agitate the already distrustful of mages locals further, and allowed the practice of any and all types of magic, aside from specific experiments that could be of danger to the students and the citizens of Winterhold. Although, as evidenced by our time in the institution, he does not appear to care a great deal for his understudies, given the lack of safety measures taken by Tolfdir and Arniel during our visit to Sarthal, and numerous miscellaneous quests, including cut ones, we can embark on. Besides, most professors seem engulfed by their own projects and do not really pay as much attention to teaching the students as they should. Savos seems to have mostly cared about the college's and by extension his reputation and the free study of magic, no matter the consequences of said study, so long as it wouldn't agitate the locals. Nonetheless, this is nothing more than an observation and personal interpretation of mine rather than undisputed fact. Aren kept the college entirely neutral, refusing to tie himself and the institution to any political faction, although he would occasionally share specific information when asked to do so. It is unknown how or why the Thalmor Ancano became his advisor, according to the Palok arrogant Altmer himself, but ultimately it was he who led the Archmage to his death, by trying to take the power of the Eye of Magnus for himself. And this is all that is known of Savos Aren, Archmage of the College of Winterhold. I doubt his spirit will find peace for some time, given the guilt and shame he continued to feel due to what occurred in Labyrinthian well over 100 years ago, but eventually, once he forgives himself, he will likely be able to depart to his preferred afterlife. Or perhaps his soul will remain in the college, maybe keep the Augur of Dunlane company down in the Midden Dark. We can only guess. And with this, today's lengthy deep dive has come to an end. The disembodied spirits lingering on the realm of Mundus have always fascinated me. It was an utmost honor and pleasure to put this extensive research on each and every one of them together, and I sincerely hope you liked the final result. If I failed to speak about a particular ghost, do not hesitate wa'ofun argonikiv to share and enlighten me, and please let me know which of the spirits, individual or group, you find to be the most interesting or simply have most fondness for. Once more, I really hope you enjoyed, and I look forward to having you in my study again, likely for a shorter investigation next time in particular. But until then, Lok Thu'um. Si fal drem kohin sil. Find the peace in your soul, di fadonne.